Hey, I'm Steve Magnante here in Bogart, Georgia at the Tony Townley Collection, which will be sold by auction on October 24th and 25th by Richmond Auctions. About 110 cars in total will be auctioned from front to end, and a lot of great vehicles in the mix include this 1962 Chevy Impala Supersport Lightweight. Now, we all know that the Beach Boys immortalized the 409 engine with that pop song 409, She's Real Fine, my 409, my dual quad, 4-speed, positive traction 409. Well, they were great cars, sadly a little bit heavy for the task of drag racing against Ford, Pontiac, and Mopar cars. So what GM did, Chevrolet did, was add lightness in the form of aluminum body panels. The fenders, the hood, and other items on the car were lightened up by 50% through the use of aluminum instead of standard stamped steel. Now, the engine on these cars are also kind of interesting. Let's pop the hood and have a peek and see what makes this one unique. And here it is, the mighty 409, again in standard trim, 425 horsepower, but this one's been embellished with Z11 top end parts in the form of high intake port cylinder heads, a two-piece intake manifold with ports to match those upgraded cylinder heads. And again, these are parts that were legal in BFX. Now, FX is, of course, the NHRA's class for factory experimental cars, not stuff that you could buy at the corner Chevy dealer, but again, FX made them legal. BFX aluminum and also the Z11 upgrades on this motor made it legal for BFX drag racing. And of course, other things that made this car light was the deletion of the heater. We can see on the firewall right there, marker says no heater to let the guys at the Flint, Michigan assembly plant know, hey, no heater, because the heater and the related parts are about 45 pounds of dead weight that you don't need on the drag strip. Even the underside of the hood is also aluminum, very nicely stamped. One thing that's a little bit raw are the inner fenders. These things here are ordinary stamped steel, but on these cars, Chevrolet with aluminum, which was more pliable and wrinkled very easily in the stamping process. You can see the wrinkles. No need to try and iron them out because they're just part of the car's charm, and that's how they were when they were originally built. And again, this motor here in standard 409 Beach Boy trim, 425 horsepower with the Z11 upgrades and a hotter cam, probably more like 430 or 500 horsepower in reality, and really a potent power plant right here, probably a 12/32 quarter mile against the 421 Pontiacs, Max Wedge Mopars, and 427 Galaxies. This thing would have battled against on the drag strips across America. Now, to back up this 409, let's have a look inside and see which transmission we discover. Inside here's the Borg-Warner aluminum case T10 4-speed, the only transmission you would want for Superstock or BFX drag racing. No automatics in that type of drag racing at this point in time. Also, the less is more theme is present throughout. There's no heater, as we saw under the hood. Of course, no radio. And just a great example of preservation. Even the carpeting lacks the jute backing, the padding, so it's basically just carpeting that has no padding behind it. Zero sound deadening qualities, and to get those 10 pounds out of the car, it's a quicker trip to the quarter mile to the finish line. And of course, the sun tachometer right here is factory issue, and that is a electronic tach, which is triggered by an amplifier under the hood. And here it is, beautifully preserved. And also, these bucket seats were standard fare in the Impala Supersport. They were not optional. They were standard on all Impala Supersports in the 60s, and here they are present and accounted for. Another detail found on all 409 cars was the extra width 14 by 6 inch rims, kind of a special thing found on lightweights and steel nose cars, present and accounted for. And the body color paint there is factory correct. These might have had a baby cap, a poverty cap, but on these cars, I believe that would have been omitted. And certainly on a drag strip, racers would have had an NHRA legal mag wheel and a slick on the back of this to get better traction. And around the back of the car, it's a beautiful example of GM styling at its best. Now, this is an Impala SS, the Super Sport, in its second year. 1961 was the first year for the Impala Super Sport moniker, and of course, Chevrolet used it and still use it today to great effect on their performance cars. Here it is, SS, and of course, the Impala was a notch above the Biscayne, which is a lesser car. But with that said, the Impala only had 6 taillights, 3 on each side. Biscaynes had 2. So basically, the hierarchy of marketing. You might wonder, why did Chevrolet not use the lighter Biscayne? Well, I'm sure the marketing people say, hey, we sell more Impalas than we do Biscaynes. We want to promote the Impala. Thus, let's make the drag cars, the lightweights, and most of the sexy SS cars on the Impala platform versus the Biscayne, which is not as sexy or appealing to the general enthusiast. So great design right here, GM styling at its best. This is one of 18 cars built, and perhaps 2 are left. So this is the real deal from front to back, aluminum panels and all. Less is more when you're talking about a lightweight Impala. Hey, Steve Magnante here in Bogart, Georgia at the Tony Townley Collection, which will be sold on October 24th and 25th, 2025 by Richmond Auctions. Every one of these vehicles will be selling, including this exotic 1962 Pontiac Catalina 421 Super Duty. Now, the thing is, the GM full-size cars were fairly heavy, body-on-frame construction, so GM, like Ford, had to really cut weight where they could. This was built with aluminum hood, aluminum bumper up front, and a lot of exotica under the hood. Now, the 421 is an outgrowth of 389 Pontiac's V8 engine, but with that said, this is no ordinary 421. This is a Super Duty engine with dual quads and 405 underrated horsepower. Let's take a peek at the mighty Super Duty 421 in its lightweight Catalina. And we have to remember that a standard Catalina with a steel nose and steel everything would probably about 3,700 pounds. So to shed about 300 pounds of that, maybe even 4, Pontiac went to aluminum for the hood, the bumper, yeah, that's aluminum, and the fenders were still steel. You can see the difference between the steel and the aluminum. With that said, those were ways to shed weight. The hood was probably worth about 30 pounds less than a steel hood, and then the bumper here, probably 30 pounds lighter than the steel factory chrome bumper. So trickery at work right here to reduce the weight of the car for better acceleration. Okay, here it is, the 421 Super Duty. And speaking of aluminum, the intake manifold on this, of course, has 2 4-barrel carbs. Once again, aluminum intake manifold right there. A couple of Carter AFBs, probably about 600 CFM each, so 1,200 total CFM, something like that. Plenty of breathing capacity. Of course, the Super Duty engines had deep groove pulleys on the alternator and also on the water pump and crank pulleys to keep them retained at, 6,000 RPM race speed. And something really exotic on this car is the fact that these have aluminum exhaust manifolds. I'll come around over here. You can see the manifolds are actually streamlined and very reduced back pressure, but the aluminum on these things goes all the way down to the bottom. There's even a bolt-on cap. You can uncork these things and pick up 15 or 20 horsepower versus blowing through the mufflers. So basically, Pontiac was looking for every angle and every edge they could find. Of course, the big competition for this car would have been the Max Wedge Mopars, 409 Chevys, and of course the 427 Galaxies. So these guys are in there swinging. Detroit battled the big three, duking it out on the drag strips of America. Let's look inside this one and see what we find. And as befitting a dual quad aluminum bumpered, aluminum hooded drag car, of course, 4-speed manual transmissions. The Super Duty program was all about manual transmissions, no automatics. And again, it's interesting to see the full width bench seat up front, not buckets, but again, fairly a combination of a form and function. But again, the 4-speed is the aluminum case, BorgWarner T10, heavy duty piece. I see 20,646 miles on this car. This is the original paint on this car. It's been very well cared for, very much pampered throughout its life, and a great example of a lightweight factory superstocker from the early 60s, the dawn of superstock drag racing, right here. Pontiac's quest for lightweight extended beyond the front bumper and the hood with the aluminum. Also, the rear bumper, also made of aluminum. Again, probably shed about 30 or 40 pounds versus the chrome-plated steel unit used in production on normal Catalinas. This is no normal Catalina. Let's pop the trunk and see what we find inside. Yeah, a lot of cool documentation. And one thing, too, this car does have 8-lug wheels. That's the spare wheel right there, which goes with the car, obviously. And if you get a flat tire with the 8-lug wheels, there's an adapter plate. This thing right here, which you use that in a tire machine at the gas station on the country road, can use their tire machine to trap the wheel and change the tire if you get a flat tire with the 8-lug wheel package, which is what this car has. Getting back to that, this car has, this is the window sticker right here. And it was sold out of Edwards Motor Company in Canton, Ohio. You can see here that it has the Super Duty motor, which was a $1,342 package with the dual quads and the 4-speed Synchromesh 4-speed safety track differential, $42. Bottom line on this was $4,436.48. So again, I'd have bought 10 of these things if I could back in the day. I'd be a multimillionaire today. But anyway, this is a very uncommon and rare car, and a total of 162 Super Duty Catalinas were built in 1962, and this is one of them. A beautiful example. Original paint, with the exception of the hood, but again, it's been resprayed beautifully. It fits right in. Again, aluminum panels original to this car, and it's a very crisp example of the breed. A rare opportunity to obtain one of these cars coming up at auction. Hey, I'm Steve Magnante here in Bogart, Georgia at the Tony Townley Collection, which will be sold at auction on October 24th and 25th, 2025 by Richmond Auctions. Dozens and dozens of very special vehicles will be sold, including this 1963 and a half Ford Falcon Sprint. You might wonder, what's a Falcon Sprint? Well, basically, this was a precursor to the Ford Mustang. If you wanted a spiffy Ford compact car before the Mustang, you bought yourself a Falcon Sprint. Now, the Sprint came with special markings, lots of extra chrome. Sprint V8 here, always V8 powered. In the case of this one, the 262 barrel, which was the standard engine in the Falcon Sprint. Of course, the bucket seats were also part of the picture. Bucket seats being a big deal in the early 60s, adding a sporty element to any car that they're in. Of course, the center console, also standard fare on the Falcon Sprint. And the detail that was also baked into every Falcon Sprint is the dash-mounted tachometer, a little bit of Ferrari in your Falcon. And again, the Falcon, a very unusual car in many ways, unibody construction, and again, being a convertible, it has extra bracing underneath to preserve rigidity of the body shell. And this one was restored and owned by a fellow named Joe Stowe. It's from his collection. He was the president of the Falcon Club of America, so a lot of new old stock parts on this, and it's also a two-time Antique Automobile Club of America winner, 1999 and 2000. Has the plaques on the grill to prove it. So it's kind of the best of the best. Going to be sold at auction. Hey, Steve Magnante here in Bogart, Georgia at the Tony Townley Collection, where about 100 cars are going to be sold on October 24th and 25th at auction by Richmond Auctions. And this is one of the very special cars. This is a 1963 and a half Ford Galaxie Lightweight. You might say, what's a lightweight? Well, in the early 60s, Detroit automakers were getting into superstock drag racing, and Ford products of the time were rather heavy. So they had full frame construction, steel bodies, steel fenders, steel doors, the whole routine. And although they had 427 cubic inches and 425 horsepower, they were at a weight disadvantage to certain Mopars and Pontiac cars. So Ford came up with the lightweight program, which included aluminum bumpers. That's aluminum, not steel. Fiberglass front fenders, fiberglass hood, and of course at the tail, another aluminum bumper and a fiberglass deck lid. And that shaved about 450 pounds off a 3,600-pound car, which made it a 3,100-pound car, which made it more competitive with the Max Wedge Mopars and certain Pontiacs of the day. So basically, that's what a lightweight Galaxie is, and we have one right here. Great example of the breed. 212 of these were built, all of them in Corinthian white with red interiors. Let's open the hood and find out what makes this car tick. In Ford's quest to reduce weight, it didn't even have hood springs to lift it, so basically the hinges are there, but he had to use a prop rod, this thing right here, to keep the hood up. And you'll notice the fiberglass matte construction on the underside of the hood. We'll get back to that in a minute about the fit and finish of this car, which wasn't 100%, but these were light, and that was the whole point. Of course, here's the heart of the car, the 427 dual quad, 14-to-1 compression, big block Ford engine, and again, 14-to-1 was the compression of these things. They were animals. They're rated 425 horse, more like 500 to be honest, and dual quads on all of them, aluminum intakes, of course, the aluminum air filter right there. The same basic engine was used in Carroll Shelby's 427 Cobra about 2 years after this car was assembled in 1963 and a half for that drag racing season. These were used in stock Eliminator and were very competitive in many ways. You notice there's no heater, motor, no fan, nothing, and these are built with delete everything. No power windows, no power steering, manual, everything on these cars. And it's all about losing as much weight as possible. We come around to the front of the car, we can see again, I love the way these aluminum bumpers sound. It's kind of a dead thud versus the chrome steel bumpers on a normal Galaxie. And of course, the wheels were even special. They're 15 by 5.5 inches wide, but the spiders are very unusual. They sort of have there's no flange in here, and that's specific to the 427 cars. Also, the 65 GT 350 Mustang has a very similar wheel made by Kelsey Hayes. And of course, the hood and fenders are fiberglass on these cars that shed probably about 20 pounds per fender versus steel, maybe 30 pounds versus a steel hood. So that all adds up. And inside the car, we'll find they're kind of austere and basic. Let's open the door and look inside. In keeping with the lightweight program to add lightness, the standard bucket seats or bench seat were deleted, things you would have found in a Galaxie 500 XL, and replaced by, these are seats out of a police package, very lightweight buckets right here. They're articulated, they can fold to get in and out of the back seat. No carpeting at all, rubber floor mats do the job. And the 4-speed transmission is a Borg-Warner T10 with an aluminum case, and here's the shifter for it right here. Of course, the Radio and heater controls have been deleted, covered by these block-off plates here. Very austere, and it's built to do one thing: accelerate as quickly as possible in a straight line. And this is from Ford Motor Company, dated April 6 of 1963. It's a list of special equipment parts. The frame assembly is very unique. The engine is unique. The transmission, the fender, the apron, the hood, all fiberglass. The rod and the spring to hold the hood up. The bolt assembly, the seat assembly, all of these things are from the police car. The mat, the door assembly, all these things are lightweight replacements for the standard stuff found in a plush Galaxy 500 XL. But for this thing, lightened up. And Ford even got themselves off the hook by this special warranty plate. It says here, this vehicle has been built specifically as a lightweight competition car and includes certain fiberglass and aluminum components because of the specialized purpose for which this car has been built, and in order to achieve maximum weight reduction, normal quality standards of the Ford Motor Company in terms of exterior panel fit and finish are not met on this vehicle. So in other words, the fiberglass is wavy. That doesn't matter. It's born to be light, and these things were very competitive against the 409 Chevys and the Max Wedge Mopars and the Super Duty Pontiacs, which it went up against every weekend at drag strips across the country. 212 of these cars were built, and you'd find these at national events, Winter Nationals, etc., and these are pretty competitive, and they helped Ford to take the full-size Galaxy and make it competitive with lighter competition. Hey, I'm Steve Magnante here in Bogart, Georgia at the Tony Townley Collection, where on October 24th and 25th, Richmond Auctions will be selling 100-plus collector cars during the auction, many of them at no reserve. Something very special is this 1965 Chevy Corvette Cutaway. This was built for the New York World's Fair, and it features a 1965 fuel-injected Corvette Stingray coupe that's been sliced and diced in the interest of allowing people to see what makes it tick from the inside out. It's electrified. The engine, transmission, differential, drive shaft all turn with a big electric motor. The suspension actually rolls on rollers and shows the articulation of the coil springs up front and the leaf spring in the back and the half shafts and all these things for a great viewing experience at the car show. And this also toured the GM Motorama display after the New York World's Fair ended, and so millions of people probably saw this from coast to coast and loved it. And it is an example of a car that had 4 miles on it, brand new car that GM sliced and again cut apart. And the show car detailing and chrome work on this is beautiful. The exhaust manifolds, the intake, everything's sliced and diced. You can see inside with a contrast painting to show off what makes it tick from the inside out. Valves are chrome plated, show chrome. Things that are done to this for show displays. So this is the centerpiece of any Corvette collection or any car collection. Bid strong. It's a one-of-kind item. Hey, I'm Steve Magnante here in Bogart, Georgia at the Tony Townley Collection, where on October 24th and 25th, 2025, Richmond Auctions will be selling just about 100 special interest vehicles, many of them at no reserve. Among them is this 1965 Ford Galaxy 500 convertible. Now, 1965 was a really good year for Ford Motor Company. They sold 564,000 vehicles, but only 82,000 of them, but they sold over 1965 was a very good year for Ford. They sold over 564,000 new vehicles, but of them, only 38,930 were convertibles like this Galaxy 500. And the Galaxy 500 was kind of the top of the line. And the vast majority of those 65 Fords were 4-doors, 2-doors, wagons, but again, the convertible body style was always in the minority. The least practical, but the most fun to own. 1965, also a big year for Ford because they went to coil spring rear suspension from leaf springs, box perimeter frame, versus the Coke bottle shaped frame of 1964 and before that. So really highly evolved. Also the first year for stacked headlights, a styling touch that some say Ford crib from Pontiac. But that said, classic face on these vehicles, big in NASCAR. But again, this one here, beautifully, it's not restored. It's an original vehicle, very low miles. It was 82,000 actual mile car. The interior is absolutely original. We could call this a survivor. The original Rangoon red paint with clear coat added, but the original paint is underneath this clear coat. A nice example, again, only 82,000 actual miles. Original interior, everything works fine. Has a 352 4-barrel premium fuel engine, has been upgraded with front disc brakes, which would have had drums from the factory, 11-inch drums, but now the power disc brakes make it a nicer daily driver. So again, special car, and again, only 38,930 of these were built, convertible 500 XL, so bid strong. It's a great car. Hey, I'm Steve Magnante at the Tony Townley Collection in Bogart, Georgia. All of these vehicles will be auctioned on October 24th and 25th of 2025 by Richmond Auctions in a non-stop barrage of bidding and selling. Let's get started with this 1965 Ford Mustang Shelby GT500. Now, we all know that Carroll Shelby was well known for the AC Cobras, 289 and 427 powered cars, but of course, equally well known for his Mustang SCCA road race ready street cars. This is one of them. This is car number 257 of a 562 car run. Again, only made in 1965. 1966, the GT350 continued, but in much more detuned state. This is the only year with 389 Detroit locker rear axle, traction bars. Of course, all of these were 4-speeds. In fact, the Shelby's got an aluminum case T10 versus the iron top loader that you might assume would be found in a regular K-code Mustang 4-speed. A lot of special parts in these things from front to back. Rated lead, heated lead, of course, no power steering, no power brakes. These were animals right off the showroom floor. And they were meant for SCCA competition in the road course road racing series all across the United States. This car is correctly restored down to the K-code 289 solid lifter motor, but it's been upgraded with Shelby, by Shelby in 65 to 306 horsepower, solid lifters, Holley 4-barrel, aluminum intake, and a lot of goodies on this to make 306 horsepower. These cars are very competitive on the SCCA sports car circuit back in the day. Of course, factory side pipes on these cars, which went away in 1966, full-length dual exhaust by 66, as Shelby detuned and decontented these cars from step to step. So 65 is the one to have if you're looking for the most ferocious, no holds barred GT350 of them all. This one even has the correct 15 by 6 inch Kelsey Hayes wheels with the correct center spiders without the flange, right down to the smallest detail like that. Coney shocks all the way around, which were factory installed by Shelby at the modification center. And also this has the axle strap retentions to limit jounce and rebound, still present on this car. Very correct 100-point restoration. Beautiful example of the breed. Fiberglass hood present and accounted for. Something weird about this car, it does not have the over-the-roof Shelby stripes, the blue stripes, which could be had. But with that said, this one's a striped elite car. Of course, the stripes on the rocker panels are unique to 1965 because they go into the door and into the rocker. For 66, they were simplified to go under the door to simplify the masking and taping that would have been required to do the two-tone stripes on the rockers. But this one is 1965, very correct in every way, shape, and form. Numerous contest winner. All the trophies come with the car, right down to the California license plates. This car's been a California car since day one, so bid accordingly. It's a one-of-a-kind car. To bump the 289 up to 306 horsepower, Shelby's people added an aluminum intake manifold, a 715 CFM Holley 4-barrel carburetor, of course, steel tube headers, and a free-flow air cleaner right there. And of course, to stiffen the front suspension for road race use on the SCCA road racing circuit, a front strut brace right here, which stiffens the nose of the car. And of course, other details were the grills on these cars in stock form had a prancing horse and a corral. Well, Shelby whipped up this thing here, which covers the gap, which would be left without the prancing or the galloping horse in the corral. So that's a Shelby GT350 only specific detail seen on this car. And of course, the prop rod. You know, Shelby had no use for anything that added weight, so the coil spring hood hinges on the stock vehicles were deleted and replaced by a simple strut rod, which probably saves a couple of pounds off the nose of the car. Nothing wrong with that. And of course, the wheels on these cars were very specific. They're 15 by 6 inch Kelsey Hayes wheels, but they're very unique. And these were sent in sort of a champagne color from Shelby to the dealer. Dealers would sometimes add aluminum wheels, but these wheels are unique because the center spider has a rolled interface, and it's not like a regular Ford Mustang type of a wheel or anything else. 406 and 427 Galaxies also use a similar wheel, but these are correct wheels for this car, one of 562 GT350s built in 1965. And on the inside of this, these are known as 2+2s in stock form, the fastbacks, because they had 2 seats up front and 2 in the back. Well, in the case of the GT350s, these are strictly 2-seaters because the back seat is deleted. There's a fiberglass panel right there. The seat would be there, and the spare tire goes under the back light, the rear window right there. right where Shelby put these, or put it back in the day. And this is a 4-speed transmission, but don't expect to find an iron top loader Ford transmission, the T&C. This is actually a Borg-Warner aluminum T10. Aluminum, of course, being lighter than cast iron. Of course, the T10 about as tough as a top loader with a small block in front of it. So right here, correct transmission under the transmission tunnel. This device here, of course, is the pod with the Shelby tachometer. And of course, the oil pressure gauge. Also, those things are branded and logoed by Shelby, factory stuff. No radio, of course, radio delete right here. And these were heater delete cars born to be raced. The only heat you need in these things is from the engine and the adrenaline of driving along a road course. And of course, the optional wood steering wheel right here. Very nice piece right there, brushed aluminum in the center. And beautiful example of the breed, right down to the lap belts right here, which are very legal in SCCA racing, not your ordinary Ford lap belt. But again, these lap belts right here, factory equipment on the GT350 in 1965, the debut year. And with following years, you know, Shelby would get a mass market and sales of these things increased, but 65 is the one you really want. 562 of these cars were built back in the day, and this is one of them. Hey, I'm Steve Magnante in Bogart, Georgia at the Tony Townley Collection, which will be sold in its entirety on October 24th and 25th, 2025 by Richmond Auctions. And let's get the ball rolling with the Chevrolets with this 1967 SS 396 convertible. Beautiful example of the breed. Of course, 67, a great year for Chevelle Super Sports because front disc brakes became available. Before 67, drum brakes all around was the rule on the big block and even the 6-cylinder Chevelle. So again, finally, Delco Moraine disc brakes available up front. And of course, those brought with them the first appearance of the Chevy Rally wheel. As we see them here, these are mandatory with the disc brakes to clear the caliper. And when you see those on the front, you know there's a disc brake behind it. It says right there, General Motors disc brakes right there. Redline tires on this one, a nice restoration. Of course, 396 turbojet, but there's a few different versions of that. Let's see which one we have. Pop the hood and scope it out. Well, there it is, the mighty 396. Now, there are 3 versions, a 325 horsepower version, a 375 horsepower solid lifter motor, or this one, the mid-range version, the 350. And the thing with that is you couldn't get the air conditioning, which this one has, with a solid lifter motor. So this is as good as it got if you wanted AC, and that's fine. Factory AC in this car, there from day one, nicely restored. And of course, the front disc brakes are power boosted right here. Power steering also on this car, baked in from the factory. Really crisp underneath the hood. Fresh restoration, a great example of the SS 396. And of course, up front, the SS 396 logo right there to tell people you're pulling up on in the Roadrunners or the Fairlane GTs that you're getting an SS 396 or a big block under the hood. It's unmistakable. Let's look inside. 1967 was also a big year for transmissions. Previous to 1967, automatic transmission big block cars had the 2-speed power glide. For 67, the 3-speed Turbo 400 became an option, but this one here has the close ratio Muncie M21 under the floorboards. As much like an automatic, I really prefer a stick shift because it couples you to the car in ways that automatics never can. Nice restoration inside, and again, AC. You can see the extra ventilation ducts here at the center of the dash and also on each side. And something kind of cool for 1967, the tachometer, which is a factory item, is located right here on the left-hand side of the dash. But here's the thing, it obscures the left-hand blinker signal. So the tachometer actually has a blinker built into it, so you make a left-hand turn, you can see it blinking, because otherwise it would obscure the tach or the blinker, which is right here in the face of the dashboard. So again, that's called the blinker tach. And there it is, corrected and presented as it should be. Of course, the console in this car, and it's a numbers matching car, by the way, engine, transmission, and also it's a 411 posi car. And let's take a look in the back and see what else we can learn about this beautiful black big block Chevelle convertible. Around the back, Chevrolet added a sinister detail on big block cars in the form of this matte black finish here at the trunk panel, seen only on the big block super sport cars. Lesser cars had body color here, but this allowed people behind you to realize that's a big block car, let alone the SS26 logo right there in the middle of the taillight panel. And inside the trunk, which is huge, that's the beautiful. These are mid-sized cars, but they have a full-size trunk. Plenty of room for groceries, luggage, etc. And you can see right here, there's a warning right there. This car is equipped with a limited slip differential, in other words, posi, and also 411 gears from the factory, which is an acceleration gear. This would have been quite an animal off the line at these stoplight Grand Prix. And of course, Beautiful restoration inside of the trunk, Zolatone finish on all horizontal and vertical surfaces. And of course, here's one of those rally wheels right here, 14 by 6-inch wheels. And again, first appearance of the rally wheel, which would serve Chevrolet for many, many years to come after its debut in '67 on these cars here. Beautiful example of the breed. Hey, I'm Steve Magnante here in Bogart, Georgia at the Tony Townley Collection, where on October 24th and 25th of 2025, Richmond Auctions will be conducting a sale of about 100 special interest vehicles. Ford lovers will want to know about this 1967 Ford Fairlane GTA, a beautiful restoration ready to be driven. Now, GTA means this is the Ford Fairlane GT with the automatic transmission. They call it the select shift. You can hold the tranny in gear if you wanted to. It's an automatic, but again, adds a sporting touch when you can hold it in first, second, and drive for longer periods than a normal automatic. Well, GTA also came with these cool hood blisters right here, which are not functional, but they help to sell the heck out of Ford Fairlane GTs. And this one has the optional 390 4-barrel. The 289 is the standard motor, and the Ford GT and the GTA, Fairlane GT, but again, the optional 390 under the hood of this one. Nice to see the styled steel wheels, which are factory option. Wide oval Firestones, a great day 2 touch. And then under the hood of this, the mighty FE 390 with 315 horsepower for 1967. And there it is, correctly presented. The chrome valve covers and air cleaner lid are both correct things for the Fairlane GT and GTA package. This one has power steering and power brakes, which are optional items. And of course, the front disc brakes are also optional. These had standard 10-inch drums from the factory as the base equipment. But with that said, this has the optional discs, power discs up front, of course, power steering. Nice touch with the heavy 390 up front. And of course, it's a bone stock 390, again, 315 horse, no headers, just standard exhaust manifolds, nothing wrong with that. Dual exhaust through the back of the car, heavy duty radiator with a clutch fan, all of it very correctly presented. Inside of the car, bucket seat interior, which of course was standard fare, and in the middle of the console, the GTA has a select shift with sort of a couple of green dots. If you hold it in gear, you can actually watch those illuminate. It's kind of a fun console factory muscle car piece right there. But again, GTA, again with the stripes down the side, which kind of hark back to the Ford GT Le Mans racer of the 1960s, but again, bringing Le Mans to Main Street, USA. But a great restoration of a desirable Ford from 1967. Bid strong. If you're a Ford lover, you'll want this car. Hey, I'm Steve Magnante here in Bogart, Georgia at the Tony Townley Collection, where about 100 special interest cars will be sold on October 24th and 25th, 2025 by Richmond Auctions. And something very special is this 1969 Camaro SS. Of course, the SS was the muscle version of the Camaro. Z28 was cool, Sport Coupe was cool, but the SS was the one with the big engine, 396, and in this case, a very special 396. Let's take a look at what makes this particular 396 so unusual. And there it is, the mighty 396 big block. This one's extra special. It's the 375 horsepower version with solid lifters, full bolt mains, big valve, big port heads, but more importantly, the cylinder heads of this are aluminum. This is one of 311 cars built with the L89 package. And again, the standard iron heads on these are fairly hefty. Aluminum cuts that weight in about half. So these are less nose heavy than a regular iron head big block Camaro. With that said, the weight of this engine is similar to a small block, pretty much in the same ballpark. But again, 375 horsepower and a beautiful restoration of a beautiful example of a lightweight nose Camaro. Again, 311 people purchased this engine back in 1969. It's as good as it gets. And how beautiful is this? A very nice presentation. The houndstooth interior, which is an option. Of course, bucket seats were certainly an option. There weren't all bucket seats in Camaros. You could get a bench if you really wanted one, crazy but true. And of course, good to see the 4-speed. This is the Muncie transmission and shifter, an M21 Muncie. And again, the Muncie linkage and the handle right there, ordinary, used to seeing the word hearse, but on this case, it's Muncie, which is GM's division for transmissions. Chrome ball is correct for the Muncie shifter and transmission underneath it. And we see the tachometer reads up to 5,500 RPM. And again, 120 mile-an-hour speedometer. And again, beautifully presented. This fully restored car, but again, it's an L89 aluminum head, 396, 375 horse vehicle, 4-speed transmission. Good to see that. Let's look inside the trunk and see what we find there. Nice to see the D80 trunk spoiler here, which was an option, not standard. Of course, blacked out taillight panel here, standard equipment on big block powered Super Sports. And nicely presented with a fresh trunk mat and the correct spare tire and lifting the jack, the bumper jack as it were. And of course here we see that here's the warning for the positive traction differential. And this has a 12-bolt rear axle, the big dog, which is what you want with the big block. Came standard with the big block car. And it's a warning not to jack the car on one side with the other side on the tire on the ground, because the car could, if you put it in gear accidentally, it would drive off the jack and cause a problem. But anyway, nicely restored in here, and Zolatone on the horizontal and vertical surfaces, really well made. And G7014, that's the tire that would be installed at the assembly line. Guys would toss the spare tire in here. That was the word to put the correct size tire to match the rest, and that's what we have here. Correctly restored, all the small details present and accounted for. A lot of information with this car in this binder. Let's check it out. And here's the window sticker. The car was originally sold by Bill Jacobs Chevrolet in Joliet, Illinois. And all the options are here: floor mats, vinyl roof covering, of course center console, positive traction with 373, 42 bucks, well spent, 375 turbo hydromatic L78s and L79 aluminum heads right there. The money of that, $832 for the aluminum head, $396. And again, money well spent if you're going drag racing. It takes a lot of the nose weight off of the car versus the iron heads. Pretty uncommon. 311 people paid that money for the aluminum head, big block, $396. Other details: auxiliary light group, Camaro equipment, custom interior, and a great looking car. And again, some documentation here that's very valuable in proving the car's history and provenance. Back it up with this. Here is the Protecto plate, this guy right here. And this is something you would have brought to the dealership, and it would sort of had like a credit card machine. And when you went in for service, they would run this through the machine, and it would print out what that you were there for service to maintain your warranty and be compliant with that. And again, we see that Eugene Crafts of Joliet, Illinois, purchased the car January 22nd, 1969. Must have been a great day for that fellow to enjoy the car, driving it off into the sunset. And here is the owner's manual right here, 1969 Camaro, Chevelle, and Nova, because one manual did the job for all three lines, but the data was similar inside. But again, here it is inside. And nice to see this documentation with the car. And again, 311 people paid the $800+ for the aluminum head big block under the hood of this one. Hey, I'm Steve Magnante here in Bogart, Georgia at the Tony Townley Collection, where on October 24th and 25th, 2025, Richmond Auctions will be selling a little over 100 vehicle lots, some of them at no reserve. Something very unusual and one of a kind is this 2-in-1 1969 Camaro show display from General Motors. There were about 4 of these things built and toured all over the country, and perhaps this is the only one left that's intact like this. Now, the interesting thing is that this side here, from the cowl back, it's a regular Camaro, kind of cool, it's a good thing unto itself, but from the cowl forward, this one presents as a Super Sport RS with the SS 350 option. It has the Super Sport hood with the ice tray hood scoops, and of course the RS hideaway headlights, the Enduro front bumper, and the 350 cubic inch small block 300 horsepower engine right here, automatic transmission backed up. Everything here is show chromed. In fact, the valve covers are transparent to give showgoers a look at the springs and the valve train in action, in motion. By contrast, this one over here is a basic sport coupe with a flat hood, just a standard hood, exposed headlights, chrome front bumper. One thing it does have is the optional sport stripe, which was an option on all Camaros, not necessarily an SS back in the day. But under the hood of this one is a 250 cubic inch Chevy 6 with an automatic, but again, everything is quite detailed. This one here, the base car, has drum brakes up front. The SS, RS has disc brakes up front. So General Motors is very specific and very correct and accurate in presenting these two vehicles at the top of the pile and at the bottom of the heap in Chevrolet Camaro order book, if you will. These cars can be purchased again here at the auction between October 24th and 25th. So bid strong. The only one of its kind, the ultimate thing for a museum or a Chevy lover's garage. Hey, I'm Steve Magnante here in Bogart, Georgia at the Tony Townley Collection, where on October 24th and 25th of 2025, Richmond Auctions will be selling a little over 100 special vehicles, many of them at no reserve. Something I'm looking forward to is this 1969 Cuda 383. Now, you think Cuda, you think 70, 71, 73, 4. Barracuda, the performance model. Well, 1969 was the first year that the Cuda nomenclature, abbreviated to Cuda, was applied to the A-body Barracuda. This is a great example of the breed here. Most Cudas were 340 power. This one has the 383, which is an upgrade over the small block 340. 330 horsepower onto the hood on this one here. This one's one of 462 Cudas built 383 cars, and of course, of those, only 153 had the 4-speed manual. Most were automatics. This was born a 383 4-speed car, numbers matching car front to back. Now it's unrestored. It's a project car waiting to happen, but it has all the hard parts to find the metal Cuda hood domes right here, and of course the 14 by 5.5 wheels, which are specific to the Cuda and the Formula S Barracudas. And a really nice example, bucket seat interior, unrestored interior, and again, very pure, very honest vehicle. Trunk floor is really nice, no rust there, I checked it out. B5 blue from the factory. And let's pop the hood and take a look at that 330 cubic inch big block 383 engine. And there she blows. Unrestored 383 engine. And everything from the factory is still here. The air cleaner, the unsilenced Commando 383, the chrome valve cover is part of the Cuda and the Formula S package. This one is power front disc brakes, which were an option. Power steering, which was also an option. And again, the correct engine block, which is cast for a provision to mount the engine mount on this side, unique to the 383 and 440 powered Cudas in 1969. And a great example, the exhaust manifolds, also very specific to the Cuda cars, the big block cars. And all here, the trim tag is right there, never been messed with. It's the original trim tag. Heavy duty radiator, the fan shroud right here. And a great example of the breed. You could either drive this as it is, that's what I would do, or you could restore it, and again, it's one of 153 383 4-speed Cudas built in 1969. A very special car, either as it is or after a restoration, so bid appropriately, it's a great one. Hey, I'm Steve Magnante here in Bogart, Georgia at the Tony Townley Collection of over 100 special interest vehicles of most descriptions, and they're all going to be sold at auction by Richmond Auctions on October 24th and 25th of 2025. And one of the very special vehicles in my book is this 1969 Pontiac Firebird Convertible. Now, it's not a Formula, it's not a Trans Am. It's a base Firebird with the Ram Air 4 engine, which was 345 horsepower, different from the basic Pontiac 400, which did not have Ram Air. We'll get into the specifics of what makes this a very special engine, the Ram Air 4, in 1969. Pontiac records show there were 17 Ram Air 4 convertibles built in 1969. A handful of those went into Trans Ams. This is not one of those, but with that said, this is perhaps rarer than a Trans Am convertible with the Ram Air 4 motor, and those are like $1 million cars in today's market. This one's not a Trans Am. Again, it's a basic Firebird, not a Firebird 400. It's a basic Firebird with the optional Ram Air 4 400. Confused yet? Well, you won't be. Let's pop the hood and see what that Ram Air 4 engine looks like. Before we open the hood, we examine the Ram Air scoops, which are functional on these cars. These scoops are absolutely functional, and Ram Air 4 stickers here to warn the guy in the GTO or the Roadrunner next to you there's a Ram Air 4 motor under the hood of this Firebird, not just a regular 350 or 400 normal engine. Let's pop the hood and take a look at what makes it a Ram Air engine. And there it is. Now, this is a multi-level opportunity to examine Pontiac engineering. The filter element, the paper element, is built into the hood. That is right there. It's into the hood. That's a round, open element air filter in the hood, not on top of the engine. Kind of a weird thing, specific to the Ram Air 4. Of course, the metal pen down here is sealed to the bottom of the hood so that the air stream goes into the carburetor and does its most effective work. And of course, we also see on this one here has a hood-mounted tachometer, the control for it right there. And that's the wiring for the hood-mounted tachometer, which is a special order option. You could get that. Has it here. And of course, back to the Ram Air 4 engine. These have a higher compression ratio than a standard 400 as found in a regular Firebird 400. Aluminum intake manifold, a radical 520 lift camshaft. It's a hydraulic cam, but one of the wildest hydraulic cams ever used in a production application. 520 lift, pretty hairy stuff for a Pontiac. And again, the aluminum intake is a special piece. And the exhaust manifolds on these are also streamlined, specific to the Ram Air 4, and larger diameter exhaust pipes all the way out to the tail, and it's perfectly restored. This car is from the Milton Robson collection, and Milton was a stickler for accuracy and authenticity, so it's a real deal car. Again, 17 cars, Firebirds, in 1969 were ordered with this engine right here, and convertible form right here. And it's not a Trans Am, it's not even a Firebird 400, it's a base Firebird, which is an interesting car. So somebody wanted a hot rod engine without the plumage of a Trans Am, and sure as heck got it right here. Let's go around to the inside of the car and have a peek at what we have. And inside, it's a pleasure to see a 4-speed transmission right here. The automatic was possible with the Ram Air 4, but not here. It's a close ratio Muncie M21, 4-speed, good stuff. Also delicious to see is the factory 8-track tape player right there. That's a factory item. Bucket seats, standard fare in the Firebird. And just a beautiful example. And the paint on this car is custom order. More on that in a second when we get to the window sticker in the build sheet. Tells a lot about these cars. And again, 4-speed Ram Air 4, 340 horsepower. A lot of fun in the sun with this top down. And this is the build sheet for this car. It's kind of cool to decode and see what we find here. Paint special, $9.36 to deviate from the factory shade. So there you have it, special paint. And of course, most important on this car is the Ram Air 4 motor right here, which is not cheap, $630 for the 4-bolt man aluminum intake manifold, 345 horsepower, party on wheels, close ratio 4-speed transmission, the Muncie M21. Very cool to see all these goodies right here. And this is to this car. And again, Milton Robson purchased the cream of the crop, and that's what you'll be bidding on during this auction on October 24th and 25th. Now let's take a peek in the trunk and see what more we can learn about this beautiful, pristine, very uncommon Ram Air 4 Firebird Convertible. And before we open the deck lid, we can see here we have the power antenna, which is seen on the build sheet. It was $23 well spent. Let's open the trunk and see what we find here. Yeah, very pristine, and apparently all of the body panels on this car are original. There's no dent or rust repair. It's a beautiful, pristine, and crisp example. And again, only 17 Ram Air 4 Firebirds were built in 1969. Only half of them are known to exist or survive. This is one of them. And again, in the trunk, just beautiful. The original wide tread Goodyear tire in place. The Superstock 2 wheels all the way around, which are an extra cost option. But again, just a great example of Pontiac engineering. Speaking of engineering, on Camaro and Firebird convertibles, there's something called a seismic damper at each corner of the car. These are heavy devices here meant to cancel cowl shake and to give the car a smoother, tamer ride. But again, only in convertibles on Firebirds and Camaros seen correctly right here. And again, a great example of a special paint Ram Air 4 close ratio Muncie 4-speed car, bid strong. Hey, I'm Steve Magnante here in Bogart, Georgia at the Tony Townley Collection, where on October 24th and 25th, Richmond Auctions will be auctioning about 105 vehicles in a 2-day barrage of selling. And one of the vehicles to be auctioned is this 1969 Yenko 427 Camaro. Now, you got to remember, this is an unrestored vehicle, quite a survivor. And Yenko built 201 of these cars in 1969. This is one of them. It's in the Yenko registry, etc. It's unrestored. It's very much original. And with that said, you can remember, 1969, Chevy would sell you an SS 350 or an SS 396 Camaro, but no such thing as an SS 427. To get one of those from the factory, you had to go to the Central Office Production Order and file order number 9561, which included the L72 425 horsepower 427 and a 4-speed or automatic transmission 410 posi rear axle, and the Kell induction hood right here is all part of the 9561 sports car conversion. So this is a 427 Camaro built by Chevrolet, but only thanks to the COPO system did this car get built. So let's take a peek at that 427 under the hood. Again, 425 horsepower, 427 cubes. Don't confuse it with a 396 or a 350. It's a whole different thing. And by the way, these were based on regular Camaro Sport Coupes, not Super Sports. So you have a standard Argent grille, no SS here, just the bow tie. And that's correct for the 9561 Yenko 427 cars that were built in Pennsylvania, finished in Pennsylvania by Yenko shop. So let's open the hood and check out that big 427 rat motor and see how we look. And there it is, the mighty L72 425 horsepower 427, built and installed at the factory thanks to the COPO 9561 order that was placed by Yenko Chevrolet to have this car built. But beyond that, what we see here, of course, is the Winters aluminum intake manifold right there, Holley 4-barrel carburetor, and cowl induction, which was part of the COPO 9561 right here, cowl induction. It's a little bit different from stuff you'd find on an SS or something, because the cowl induction flap is not there. It's always open, which is fine by me. And of course, this being a COPO car, it's not based on an SS, so it's basically a Camaro Sport Coupe with the Argent grille, no SS here, so the bow tie here is correct. Found on the COPO cars right there, no Super Sport logos in the front. And other details added at Don Yenko's shop in Pennsylvania include headers, which are better than the cast iron manifolds these would have been born with. And of course, also we see an engine torque strap right here on the driver's side. So when you dump the clutch to explode off the line in a drag race, it doesn't break the motor mount or harm the motor mount. So there's basically a turnbuckle here, which keeps the motor planted down. That's something that was added by Don Yenko's shop for sure. Also, we see a fiberglass plastic flex fan right here, which doesn't rob power as much as a fixed steel-bladed fan would. Now, while some Yenko 427s were built with turbo 400 automatics, some of them has the M21 4-speed, a Muncie, a tough transmission. Gotta love a stick shift for the big block, nothing better than that. This does have the Stewart Warner gauges for oil pressure, for engine temperature, and even a tachometer on this side of the steering column. And again, Stewart Warner gauges are aftermarket pieces, not installed by Chevrolet, but again, they do the job of protecting the engine from abuse and neglect, so good to have those on board. Bucket seats, of course, up front, no console. Again, the Copo cars are strippers. It was all about the engine and the power plant that got these things down the quarter mile. Let's take a peek toward the back of the car and see what else we can find. More Yenko goodies to make the car more effective on the drag strip are traction bars. They bolt onto the leaf springs to prevent axle hop. And of course, more Yenko plumage and signage around the sides. And here at the tail, right here, Yenko and 427 to warn the guy in the Hemi Cuda behind you or the Mustang 428 that you better not mess around. This is a pretty serious muscle car, capable of low 13, high 12-second quarters. An animal, really, on the street or a strip. So opening the trunk, we find proper applications of Zolatone, and again, unrestored car. This stuff's been in here since 1969 when this car was built. And in the trunk we see a Stewart Warner electric fuel pump right there, certainly added by the Yenko folks to supplement the mechanical pump on the front of the engine to make sure fuel pressure stays steady for the Holley carburetor up top. And lots of paperwork inside. And provenance like this is priceless, and we'll check this out and see what we find. And here's some paperwork from Yenko in Canonsburg, Pennsylvania, new car inventory, and here it is right here, Fathom Blue, or Fathom Green Camaro right here, going off to Francis Chevrolet. And this confirms this car, this is paperwork from this car when it was modified by Yenko. And here is more paperwork here. These are dealerships that supplied and retailed the Yenko supercars. One of them here is Francis Chevrolet, which is referenced in that first piece of paper. And here it is, Francis Chevrolet in Bridgeton, Missouri. There it is right there. And then, somebody had rally wheels on it at some point. And speaking of previous owners, it's nice when you have advertisements in local classifieds showing the car. And here it is right here, 1984. Here it is, the want ad on the cover. There it is. 69 427 Camaro. And then we open up and it says here, it's been blueprinted and balanced, and here it is right here, cover picture, and here it is describing the Yenko 427 Camaro, and here they wanted $17,500 back in early 1980s, so that seemed like a lot of money, but if we only knew at that point in time, and we'll find out what this one is worth on the 24th or 25th when it sells at auction. Hey, I'm Steve Magnante here in Bogart, Georgia at the Tony Townley Collection of about 110 cars that will be auctioned on October 24th and 25th by Richmond Auctions in a two-day frenzy of sale of amazing muscle and collector cars of pretty much every description. This is something very rare and unusual. It's an actual 69 Charger Daytona, but it's also a 3,600-mile unrestored survivor. And fantastic cars in so many ways. These were made to homologate the Charger Daytona for NASCAR Super Speedway Racing. And this one, again, has never been raced or restored. Again, 3,600 miles on this example here. It's done in Hemi Orange, which is the original factory color on this car. And just a great example of preserved muscle. And again, 3,600 miles. Let's take a look at the engine and see what we find under the hood. The pointed nose on the Charger Daytona was meant for aerodynamic efficiency. These cars would regularly lap super speedways at 204 miles per hour. No kidding, with the big race Hemi under the hood. And these do retract. These are vacuum operated on the production cars. When they're down, the coefficient of drag is minimized versus the standard Charger with the sunken grille. And again, the beak is all about aerodynamic efficiency. And the wing at the back, we'll get to that in a second. But one common misconception is these are made of fiberglass. These are metal. Actually, it's hand-formed sheet steel, and the only fiberglass on these cars is the headlight buckets. That is fiberglass. Otherwise, all of the external appendages are made of metal, steel on the back, and aluminum at the tail on the spoiler. Okay, let's look at the hood, under the hood, see what we find. And there were two possible engines with the Charger Daytona, the 426 Hemi scares as hen's teeth, or the 440 Magnum with 375 horsepower and 480 foot-pounds of torque. Nothing to be shy about right there. And again, totally unrestored. Everything on this car is the way it was delivered from Creative Industries, which was the company that did the conversion on these cars for Dodge off the assembly line. And it was kind of crude. I will say that there's a rubber gasket here which prevents airflow from getting between the nose cone and the hood and the fenders, and there's overspray on that, which is right there from Creative Industries in just outside of Michigan. And there it is, and to tidy that up would be to over-restore the car. And again, this is an unrestored 3,600 mile example of the breed. And of course, under the hood, the 440 Magnum's bone stock, not modified. The original air cleaner is there. This is power disc brakes up front. It is also a power steering car, but AC air conditioning was not possible on the Daytona because it just wouldn't cool effectively. Also a lot of handmade parts on these cars. This little structure right here is also something that had to be made by hand at Creative Industries, and it's all there and present and accounted for, and there's no signs of accident damage. Again, it's 3,600 miles of use this car has had. Great example really of an unrestored car. On top of the fenders, these items here, there are little ducts inside of here with holes that have a chicken screen, a vent covering on them. They're all there, and again, this car is very much as it was, Hemi orange paint. Something I see on this is kind of cool. The A32, which is the Super Performance axle package. That's a 410 Dana rear axle, usually found with 4-speed cars. This is a torque flight automatic with the A32 Super Performance 410 Dana under the back seat, so we'll get to that stuff in a couple of minutes. But again, unrestored example right here. And what a rare treat. This is an all-original, unrestored 3,600 mile interior in this Charger Daytona. The 150 mile an hour speedometer right there. I'd say with the 410s, it's probably a 120 mile an hour car or thereabouts. But with the 354s or a lesser gear, you could probably get close to 150 without any problems. Closed course only, please. But anyway, beautifully restored. Not restored, it's original. This is Survivors, what this is, in every way, shape, and form. The thumb wheel AM/FM radio right there. Very cool to see that. Just really, really well preserved inside. But the business on these cars is at the tail, the rear window area, and the trunk. A lot to be described there. Let's look. In addition to the nose, the pointed nose on the Charger Daytona, modifications were made at the back of the car too. Most notably, this wing, we'll get to that in a second, but the rear window on a standard Charger is tunneled, which in 1968, the NASCAR teams discovered caused lift at high speeds on the super speedways. So for the Charger 500 and the Daytona, the window was modified to be flush like this. And again, that took a lot of handwork. The people at Creative Industries, there was a metal plug that went into here, and then the bodywork was done to merge the metal insert with the metal quarter panel in this area, and the glass is specific to these Charger Daytonas and Charger 500s, which is similar but not the same. Of course, the rear package tray is much extended on this, and the business end of the tail of these cars is this. The big airfoil here on the back basically exerts downforce at racing speeds, over 140, 50 miles an hour, probably about, 150, 160 pounds or thereabouts of downforce, which help the tail of the car stay on the track at racing speeds once again. This is not fiberglass, common misconception. These are aluminum, die-cast aluminum, upper and lower, and they're adjustable. These screws right here, you can adjust it for rake if you choose to, the angle of attack, but these are mostly left in this position for street use, obviously. And of course, in the trunk of these cars is another story. The trunk is slightly shorter on these cars. Actually, the deck lid is shorter to accommodate the wing, and inside of the trunk caught a lot of cool things. And again, all this work that was done on these was hand performed by the guys at Creative Industries, which is saying a lot. Anyway, the paint on this, the black is factory stuff, of course. That's the treatment, the graphics treatment on these cars. And inside the trunk, 2 jacks, because to lift the car up, if you had a spare tire, the bumper jack here could lift the back of the car to change one of the rear tires, but up front, the nose is very delicate. So you just have a screw jack, which you put underneath the side of the car to lift the car up to change the front tires. So both jacks are present and very original. Again, 3,600 mile car, a survivor of the first order. And in the trunk here, tons of documentation. Let's take a peek at that. Here's the all-important window sticker right here. This car was sold to Lehigh Valley Dodge of Allentown, Pennsylvania. And the original price was $4,695.30. And for that, you got the Charger Daytona and the Super Performance apps, the 410, $54.45. And the Daytona package was $271.50 over the Charger RT. Money well spent, I dare say. Has the console, torque flight transmission, the 440 engine, of course. The Hemi was an option, not seen here, which is fine. 375 horsepower. Left side remote control mirror. Music Master AM thumb wheel radio. Power steering. Delete stripe. The RT stripe is deleted. However, the Daytona stripe was applied by Creative Industries. Chrome stamped road wheels, optional. Special order tires. Fiberglass red lines. And moving from here, we go on to the build sheet. And here is the build sheet, which tells us all we want to know, and then some. You see on the bottom here, special order, which all Daytona Chargers were. They were very special, shipped off to Creative Industries for completion. And we see here the VIN, the sequence number, all these goodies, all the codes for the engine, the axle ratio, the 410 Dana, Super 832, the Super Track Pack. And here we have the wheel choice, torsion bars, all these things are right here. These are this is the DNA for the car. So scarce to find one of these. This is the actual one. There's even bits of a second one that was found under the seat. So, you know, there's no doubting this car's provenance. Again, 3,600 miles from new. Crazy. And this is a Dodge dealership item. It says, order now. Dodge Charger Daytona announcing, this is the preview right here, telling the story about the Charger Daytona coming soon to a dealership and racetrack near you. And on the other side of this, kind of cool here, describes the standard engine, all the goodies, and then the optional engine, the 426 Hemi. So order a Charger Daytona from your dealership today. And this is Mopar Collector's Guide from the year 2000. Hard to imagine 25 years ago, but the car was great enough then as it is now for a full magazine feature. And here it is right here in the article by Randy Holden and Rob Wolf, I should say. And here it is right here in its time. And again, at this point in time, it probably had 3,200 miles on it, but 3,600 miles right now, which is just unbelievable. This car has survived all these years. Unrestored, very original condition, beautiful piece, a one-time opportunity to own something like this. Hey, I'm Steve Magnante here in Bogart, Georgia at the Tony Townley Collection, which will be sold on October 24th and 25th, 2025 by Richmond Auctions in a blitz of a two-day auction event. This is a great example right here of one of the rarest Pontiacs perhaps of all time, a 1968 Pontiac Ram Air 2 convertible. Only 92 of these cars were built. Beyond the fact there are only 92 of these cars built with the Ram Air 2 engine in convertible body styles in 1968, this is also the first year for the restyle of the Pontiac GTO body. First year, of course, for the Endura nose, which was optional right here. Also first year for hideaway headlights, again optional. This has the original paint on it in most areas, a beautiful survivor in so many ways. Even the original Guide T3 headlights are here in all four positions, 1, 2, 3, 4. And Guide T3 means that when you're aligning them, tilt them down and outboard 3 degrees to get proper alignment as you go down the road at night. Of course, the Ram Air system right here, seen for its first time on the 68 GTO right here. And there it is. These are functional. These are die-cast metal. There's no block-offs. On a lesser GTO, these would be blocked off with integrally cast blocks. And these are functional, and we'll get to that in just a second. This car also has 25 factory-installed options, and we'll get to how and why we know that in a moment. One of the cool details is the factory-installed hood-mounted tachometer right there. A seldom seen item, often duplicated, but it's factory-installed on this particular car. Under the hood, let's check out that Ram Air 2 400 engine. And the Ram Air scoops outside of the hood, feed air into the air cleaner base, and this foam seal goes to the bottom of the hood. This panel right here directs the cold air into the air cleaner right here. And there's no flaps, there's no control for foul weather. It was always open, put it like that. A very brash effort to get cool, dense air into the 400 cubic inch motor. 366 horsepower. Other ingredients were a 10 3/4 to 1 compression, a little higher than the base GTO motor. And again, high ratio rocker arms, so it has the effect of a 520 lift camshaft. And these engines are good to about 6,000 RPMs, which is saying a lot in Pontiac land. These are generally station wagon power plants, Bonneville's big cars, but again for the GTO, the Ram Air 2 kind of made it a serious muscle car, contender on the boulevard. And of course, has power disc brakes up front, and it's pretty well loaded with options, again, 25 factory option. And here's the wiring right here for the hood-mounted tachometer. And something really cool, this car is so original, the original emission sticker is right here on the radiator shroud, and it says Ram Air right there. That's proof positive. This original Ram Air engine installed from the factory. And it's more than that. Sort of just a cherry on top of the ice cream right here. The Ram Air emission sticker right there, still in place after all these years. And again, this car has 25 factory installed options, including power windows, of course, power top, even the wood grain knob for the shifter right here, also a factory option. The sports steering wheel with the simulated wood around the perimeter. And again, a very well-preserved car, not been restored. A handful of these cars were built with the Ram Air 2 engine, the close ratio Muncie M21 transmission under the floorboards, and just a beautiful example of the breed. Let's go around to the back of the car and see what else we can learn. And as one of 92 Ram Air 2 convertibles built in 1968, documentation is everything. We have tons of it here. Here's the original body broadcast sheet right here, which tells us about the components baked into this car from day one at the Pontiac assembly plant. Here is other data here, the Pontiac warranty card. This thing right here, been with the car since day one. Also, goes with the car. Beautiful, the protector plate right there. And also of great importance is this car was verified by Jim Madison at PHS, Pontiac Historical Services. And here's just a listing of all the stuff that was baked into this car. Safety track rear axle, rear stereo, AM, FM, spare tire cover. Yes, you paid extra for that. Door edge guards, retractable headlight covers. We saw those at the front of the car. Mirror, visor, seat belts, custom. Tachometer on the hood. We saw that up front. Rally 2 wheels on the car, extra cost. Custom sport steering wheel, we saw that inside. Clock, exhaust extensions, these guys right here, which are also extra cost. Power brakes. And one thing that's crazy about this car, was built with 433 gears in the differential. So somebody had a lot of fun drag racing this car back in the day. But that's the original block and engine. And again, it's unrestored. And again, a handful of these cars, 92 were built. And again, 25 factory options as verified by PHS and all of that documentation that goes with the cars. Perhaps one of the rarest Pontiacs ever built. Hey, I'm Steve Magnante here in Bogart, Georgia, where on October 24th and 25th, 2025, the Tony Townley Collection will be auctioned. Many cars at no reserve, just about 100 vehicles, and one of the special ones that I'm preferring to see is this 1969 Chevy Camaro Z11 Indy Pace Car convertible. Now in 1969, the Indy Pace Car was only available with this white and orange two-tone paint with a houndstooth interior, and there were only 3,675 of these Pace Car convertibles built. This is a big dog. Why? Because it's the SS 396. Now these were available with the base 350, which was the base engine in the Indy Pace Car, but the 396 was the optional engine. This is not just any 396, but this is the special 396. This is the L78 with 375 horsepower salt lifters, and it's quite a handful of an engine. Let's pop the hood and take a look. And again, part of the Indy Pace Car package was the ZL2 cowl induction hood right here, steel, not fiberglass, and a proper restoration on this one here. And this car is a very low mile car. When they did the restoration, this car had 20,800 miles. So some would say it didn't need to be restored, but it was restored. And Milt Robson was the man who kind of oversaw the restoration. So you know it's the best of the best. Great numbers matching car. Let's pop the hood and have a look at that L78. And there it is. Now the L78 was a very special engine. Unlike the smaller 325 and 250 horsepower 396, this one has solid lifters, aluminum intake, Holley 4-barrel carburetor, and this is completely restored back to square one. The original smog equipment is still there. Most people take that stuff off, and it's often missing in action, but this one has been properly restored to 100-point status. And best of all, this is a close ratio 4-speed car, power steering, power brakes, of course, and here's the wonderful ZL2 cowl induction hood right here. The flapper valve in the back opens up to allow air into the engine here at wide open throttle. So just a high horsepower car. And the beauty of this thing, this is ordered new at United Chevrolet in Worcester, Mass, my backyard. So kind of cool, sort of a homecoming for Steve. Will I buy this car? That's up to you. You buy it. You're bidding. So inside the car, we see the houndstooth interior right here with the orange and checkered inserts. And of course, nice to see the original window sticker right here from United Chevrolet in Worcester, Massachusetts, right there. And everything present and accounted for, properly restored. 4-speed close ratio transmission and a nice convertible top, which is correct. The two-tone interior with the orange side pipes, or side panels, and black carpeting, very eye-catching. And again, this is the Indy Pace Car for 1969, the Indy 500, and only 3,675 of these were built in 1969. Very special car. Once again, L78, big block, under the hood, numbers matching car. Bid strong. It's a special car. Hey, I'm Steve Magnante here in Bogart, Georgia at the Tony Townley Collection, where on October 24th and 25th, right about 100 special interest cars will be sold by Richmond Auctions, including this 1969 Camaro Z28 in Daytona yellow, beautiful example of the Z28 in its third and final year in its first generation, 67, 68, and 69. 1970 brought a whole different design and a very different engine under the hood. But speaking of the Z28, from 67 through 69, they have a 302 cubic inch small block V8, small block Chevy, and the beauty of that is it has a 4-inch bore and a 3-inch stroke, good for RPMs for the SCCA Road Race Series. Now, the reason why they didn't put 350s or 396s in these cars is because the SCCA had a mandated 5-liter limit. 305 cubes, anything more than that was illegal, so that's why these had 302s instead of 350s or larger engines. So that's the story of that. Now, let's go under the hood and have a peek at that Y-winding 302. And there it is, the Mighty Mouse. Now this one's very special. Not only does it have the 302 motor, but also has the cross ram, which is something you could get in the trunk or over the counter from a Chevy dealership. And again, the cross ram on this has 2 Holley 4 barrels mounted on a cross ram intake, which basically there's a slight supercharging effect. This carburetor feeds that bank, that carb feeds this bank, and it's all sealed to the bottom of the cowl induction hood right here. And again, it's rated 290 horsepower with the single 4 barrel, more like 340 or 50 with this in place. And it's an interesting item that's rarely seen on Z28s. Basically, it's like the crown on the king's head to have a cross ram Z28. Great example right here. Beyond that, of course, power front disc brakes, beautiful restoration, and for me, that's really the tip of the iceberg on this is the cross ram manifold. It still has the exhaust manifolds, the original smog equipment, which is unusual. That stuff usually goes by the wayside by the 3rd day of ownership, especially a guy with a cross ram is going to put headers on one of these things. But with that said, it's nice to see the cross ram, which was a tribute to the SCCA road racing era, and the Z28, which pretty much dominated in that period of time. So inside, no automatics. Let's see which transmission we have. It's nice to see a 4-speed manual transmission inside of a Z28. Of course, 1970, you could finally get an automatic behind the 350 Z28, but a whole different car, whole different philosophy. But again, 4-speed manual transmission. A beautiful restoration. Inside console was an option. The standard car would just have a bucket here, a boot, and of course the full gauge is right here. Fuel pressure, fuel level, battery, and temperature right here. The gauge is down here. AM radio, nice to see that. But again, no air conditioning on a cross ram Z28 at this point in time. But a nice presentation inside. Fresh interior, great looking car. This has the D80 trunk spoiler and chin spoiler, not standard equipment on Z28. You paid a little extra, but looks great. Nice restoration, all the correct colors. Of course, the underside of the trunk matches the body, which is the way the Fisher body division shipped these cars. Zolatone finish on the horizontal and vertical surfaces inside of the trunk, a Z28 logo on the back, and really nice presentation. The correct 15-inch rally wheel with a spare tire here in place. The original type bumper jack still present. Nice example of the breed. Whole bunch of paperwork and documentation with this car. Let's go take a look at it right now. It's pretty mouth-watering and shocking in some ways too. Very, very cool stuff in this collection of goods. And documentation goes a long way toward, proving the veracity and authenticity of a car and also its value now and down the road. Let's check this stuff out. And here's the actual window sticker from this car. It was sold in La Habra, California. Can't see the rest of the top, but with that said, we can see here that it has headrests, tinted glass, floor mats, etc., center console, and again, most importantly, a positive traction rear axle, 373 axle, and power disc brakes up front, 4-speed transmission, the M20 wide ratio. It's a good piece, better dig off the line, and E70 by 15 tires, speed warning indicator, special instrumentation, and most importantly right here, down bottom here, the special performance equipment Z28 for $458.15. This is the real deal from this very car, the window sticker from when it was new. Beyond that, we also have the broadcast sheet. Now, usually Mopar people call these the broadcast sheet. Well, in GM land, it says chassis broadcast copy. The remains of it, this was found in the car. A little crunchy, but this goes to the car, and this basically told the line workers when they built the car which options to make sure they included into it. It's a Z28 for sure. And with that said, the cross ram we saw was not factory installed. More on that right here. Now, of course, the cross ram was something that was made by Winters Foundry for General Motors, but never installed on the line. It says here, it should be understood that no Z28 was ever factory built with a cross ram, but it was sold over the counter in case somebody wanted to go racing with it on the weekend in a road race SCCA situation. Now, the SCCA may have banned those, but with that said, the single four-barrel Z28 was plenty potent enough, so the cross ram stuff was really not needed. But here's pictures of various types of cross rams. There are a couple of variations on this is the GM, and of course Offenhauser made them too, but with that said, this is a GM cross ram right here, and there's one on this car. Not built there from the factory, but it comes with the car clearly, and they run and drive just fine. A little thirsty, but with that said, it's amazing to have a cross ram. When you pop the hood, people freak out. Here are the original registration from La Habra, California, way back when. And here it is from 1969, when the car was first registered for use on the street. Hey, I'm Steve Magnante here in Bogart, Georgia at the Tony Townley Collection, which will be sold in its entirety by Richmond Auctions on October 24th and 25th of 2025. Vehicles of many descriptions, including many blue chip Ford products, will be sold, including this 1970 Ford Torino 429 Cobra. Now, the Cobra was the top level of the Torino tree and included a lot of graphics, the reflective tape stripes here along the side of the car and down the side, and of course the Cobra logo right here in bright full color, of course 429 under the hood, black dot hood treatment on this one here, and of course the Cobra also included the twist type hood pins right here. And just a great example, this one here is an unusual color combination. It says Richard Petty blue paint. That's right, Richard Petty, who drove for Ford in 1969 and returned to Chrysler Corporation for 1970 aboard a Plymouth Superbird. But apparently some dealerships wanted to pay tribute to the Richard Petty tie-in, and a handful of these cars were built with Richard Petty blue. It's a special order paint. We'll see that on the Marty report in just a second. In the meantime, let's check out what that 429 is all about under the hood. And under the hood of this car, we find the 429. This is not the Ram Air engine, but basically the N code 360 horsepower 429. Plenty of torque, good power. Again, 360 horsepower versus the 375 from the J code big dog. But again, we see this does not have the aluminum valve covers of a J code. But again, the stamped steel piece is pretty cool. No Ram Air on this one. The basic single four-barrel carburetor with the underhood air induction right here. Power disc brakes up front, power steering. And again, the power disc brakes were optional. You paid extra for those things. And the paint on this is beautiful. Again, it's Petty blue, only applied to 60 vehicles as part of the Petty special paint option. This is not grabber blue. This is Petty blue as used in 69 and before on a lot of Richard Petty's race cars. Interesting that they were honoring a Mopar racer, but again, 69, Petty did run Fords in NASCAR circuit racing. But again, beautiful example here of a special order paint package 429 Cobra Jet Fairlane. One popular option on a lot of these Torino Cobras were these styled hubcaps, wheel covers, and these look like magnesium, but they're actually pretty elaborate stampings, stainless steel. And again, the lug nuts are artificial, but they look the part. And this looks like magnesium, but it's actually stamped metal. The trim ring is also a stamping. Looks the part of a magnesium racing wheel, but it's less expensive to purchase and to produce. But it's a great part of this car, and these are hard to find. And here they are, all four of them in place. And here's the Marty auto report that gives the breakdown of the car's genetics, I guess, if you will. And this is built with the N code 429 360 horse four-barrel engine. Build date November 1969. Close ratio 4-speed manual transmission. And it was Richmond ordering special order with the Richard Petty special. And again, there were only 60 cars built with the Petty blue from the factory. And here's proof of it right here on the Marty report. As we saw on the Marty report, here's the business end of that close ratio 4-speed top loader transmission right here with Hurst linkage and T-handle right there. Very austere interior. Interesting, a bench seat up front, not buckets, but that's okay. Power steering, of course, power brakes, and just nicely presented inside and out. And again, this is one of 60 cars built with the Richard Petty promotion in mind. Probably a dealership wanted to promote Richard Petty's involvement with Ford in 69. A unique detail on these is also the white mirrors on both sides, which was something baked into those cars, all 60 of them. The Richard Petty paint on the outside, the white mirrors on the outside, and very eye-catching program. Hey, Steve Magnante here in Bogart, Georgia, at the Tony Townley Collection, which will be auctioned by Richmond Auctions on October 24th and 25th, 2025. And something kind of neat is this Boss 302 Mustang. Now, Boss 302s were made in 69 and 70. This one, of course, the second and final year. Now, the Boss 302 is a very special engine. It's very different from the Windsor 302 found in Mom's station wagon and lesser Mustangs with two-barrel carbs. These actually have canted valve cylinder heads, and these are basically designed for SCCA Trans Am road racing. This is the raw material to make an actual Trans Am race car. And again, the engine on these things is very unique and specific. Now, this one's kind of cool. It has a couple of things that are unusual to Boss 302s. This one has the shaker hood, which is not standard. It was optional equipment at extra cost. But again, the Boss 302 under that hood, let's take a look at that and see what makes it a Boss and not a Windsor. The Boss 302 takes its name from the 302 cubic inch displacement of the engine under this special hood. Now remember that these were built for SCCA road racing competition, which mandated a 5-liter maximum, which is 302 cubic inches, thus the 302 engine under the hood. But just a regular Windsor 302 would not do in competition against Z28s and AMXs and other vehicles from competing manufacturers. So the Boss 302 got some very special cylinder heads with canted valves. Or basically, they have freer flowing ports, and the valve angles are different from a Windsor. So these are actually better flowing heads than any 302 station wagon motor or any base Mustang 302 engine. So the Boss 302 is a very special and unique piece unto itself. This one's a Yenko drag pack, which means it has the 430 gears in the rear axle with traction lock differential. And because of the higher RPMs those gears would turn, the engine oiler has a cooler right here, which is part of the drag pack package, as it were. And right here, the horns are located on the passenger side, where ordinarily on a lesser Mustang or a non-drag pack car, they would be here. So again, it's a true W code drag pack 430 geared Mustang. And another detail too on these cars is these were all built with a RPM limiter to help preserve engine longevity. This device right here from Autolite has a 6,150 RPM limit, so when you get to 6,150 it would kill the ignition and cut it out so you couldn't blow the engine. But these are very durable engines, 4-bolt mains, forged parts inside. And again, this one has the optional shaker, which like the 428 Mustang we saw in another, will be in the auction as well. It has a functional scoop right here, but underneath the lid is a flapper valve, which opens by vacuum at wide open throttle to allow cold air in there for cooler, denser intake charge. Now, these were rated 290 horsepower from Ford, which I dare say is about 50 or 60 shy of what the reality was, but these are very potent engines. And again, only available the 4-speed close ratio manual transmission, no automatics in Boss 302 land. Let's look inside and see that transmission. Now, inside this Boss 302 Mustang, pretty utilitarian, fairly Spartan, no center console. But of course, the 4-speed with the T-handle, the Hurst T-handle, factory equipment, the Hurst linkage right there. Of course, on the other side of that transmission tunnel is a close ratio Ford TNC top loader, a mighty tough transmission if there ever was one. And again, a great example, really freshly restored inside. This one does have the optional sport deck back seat, which folds down if you wanted to gain more cargo room in the back here. And speaking of the back, let's take a look in the trunk and see what we find. Now, this car is has the factory optional trunk spoiler and, of course, the sport slats on the rear window. Optional things, not standard fare, but we know what this car was originally built with because it has the Marty report, which is all important to verifying pretty much any Ford vehicle. But here it is here. It tells out all the details on the car, including the fact that it's an original W code 430-to-1 acceleration machine, as it were. And here's the thing. This car has the original engine block, never been harmed. With that said, 430 gears, if you're in first or second and you rev too high, if the rev limiter doesn't save the day, which it should, that's what it's for, it's easy to ventilate the block. But again, to have an original 430 geared Boss 302 is a very special thing. Hey, Steve and Yenko here in Bogart, Georgia at the Tony Townley Collection, which on October 24th and 5th will be sold at auction by Richmond Auctions. And this is a special car right here. It's a Buick, as they say, go fast with class. That's what Buicks were all about. It's a 1970 Buick GS 455, but not only that, it's a 4-speed, it's a convertible, and it's a Stage 1. Now, the Stage 1 logos proudly present the fact that this has the 455 under the hood, with 360 horsepower, which is only 5 more than the base 455 Grand Sport engine. But there's some special stuff that makes this a Stage 1 engine. We'll get to that in a second when we pop the hood. But again, a beautiful restoration, special color on this one, beautiful wheels on this, and crisp restoration. Minimum miles, I think 9,000 miles on this car since it's restored. It's a beautiful car, ready to be driven and enjoyed. Let's pop the hood and take a peek at that mighty 455 Stage 1 power plant. Before I lift the hood to look at that 7.5-liter Buick Monster underneath it, notice the hood scoops right here. They're functional. Even the basic GS350 came studded with this cold air hood, which absolutely works. Those vents go to the dual snorkel air cleaner and get sealed with these foam seals right here to the bottom of the hood, so cool air goes into the Rochester Quadrajet 4-barrel carburetor to keep the 455 breathing cool, crisp air. But the Stage 1 package is special. These have 360 horsepower, which is only 5 horsepower more than the base 455, but that was an understated thing. These have larger valves, bigger exhaust systems, and of course the chrome valve covers, a higher lift camshaft, 10.5-to-1 compression, slightly higher than the base 455 4-barrel in a Grand Sport. So again, the GS 455 Stage 1 is about as hot as it gets. These have 510 foot-pounds of torque, which is more than a Hemi or an LS6 Chevelle. And again, this was the torque monster right here. They said, go fast with class. That's what Buick was and is all about. And again, this one here is a convertible, which makes it a very, very rare bird. And apparently something like 17 of these cars still exist in the world according to the Grand Sport Registry, and this is one of them. It's a real car. It has been restored. It's beautifully restored. This is from the Milt Robson collection, which Milt didn't mess around with crappy cars. He collected the best, restored the best, and this is one of them. Let's look inside and check out that 4-speed transmission. Inside this 455 Stage 1 convertible is a mixture of form and function. Function in the form of the 4-speed transmission. It's the wide ratio M20 Muncie aluminum case, and again, great transmission behind that 510 foot-pound 455 torque monster on the other side of the firewall, but also a lot of beautiful things like a Buick AM/FM radio with an underdash Buick 8-track tape player right there. Oh, that's factory equipment. Correct to this car. And it also luxury comes in the form of power windows, front and rear, of course a power top, and of course power steering, power brakes, air conditioning, all those things baked in this car from day one. And as we come around to the back of the car, we can see this has the optional rear window defogger. Let's take a peek at that. In being a Buick, the rear window on this is not plastic like you'd find in most convertibles. It's actually glass, very nice. And inside the trunk lid, we see very nicely preserved and restored. The Zolatone textures on the horizontal and vertical surfaces, correct. And also one thing about the Stage 1 package, you got a standard 364 axle ratio under the deck lid, which helped acceleration. So these things were capable of high 13-second quarter miles off the showroom floor. And back in the 1980s, there was a whole rivalry between GS 455 people and Street Hemi people, and the Buick actually beat the Street Hemi in Muscle Car Review magazine back in the late 80s. A whole flap, a whole controversy, but these are very capable of embarrassing a lot of other big block muscle cars on the street and strip. Great example of the breed right here. Bid accordingly, it's a nice one. Hey, I'm Steve Magnante here in Bogart, Georgia at the Tony Townley Collection, which on October 24th and 25th will be sold by Richmond Auctions in a 2-day frenzy of buying and selling. It'll be a fantastic time. One of the vehicles that's going to be on the block will be this 1970 Charger RT 440 6-pack. It's a numbers matching car with the 440 6-pack, of course, as we said, under the hood. It's one of 184 6-pack 4-speeds built in 1970 on the Charger RT platform. Great example, it's a rotisserie restoration on a car that had 63,000 miles when they started the restoration, so a very solid example, and again, numbers matching car. And of course, EV2 Hemi Orange paint has been on this car since it was born, so it's a Hemi Orange 7440 6-pack Charger RT. Let's look inside. Pop that hood. And I love this, the callouts were new for 1970. You could get these option on your 440 or your Hemi car, 440 or HEMI. This one has the 440. Pop the hood and see what we find. And here we go. Yeah, beautiful, nice restoration. The 446 barrel. 1970 brought the cast iron intake manifold, replacing the aluminum one for 1969. That's fine. And again, cast iron manifolds, high upswept, high flow manifolds, 390 horsepower right here, 480 foot-pounds of torque, lots of torque to boil the tires, and again, numbers matching block and transmission, and again, it's one of a very small number of 184 6-pack 4-speed cars built in 1970. And the fender tag here says it all. We have EV2, Hemi Orange paint, and just really clean and great example. This one has the drag track pack with the 354 Dana in the back with the flex fan or the torque fan, the aluminum clutch-driven fan, power steering, power disc brakes up front, and the big 26-inch wide radio, which was part of the track pack on the Dodge Charger. And of course, 1970 saw a new grille, and for the first time on this family of Charger, electric headlight doors versus the vacuum ones used in 1968 and 69, which are a little problematic, but these are electric, they work just fine, and just a beautiful restoration under the hood on this one here. Inside, of course, 1970 new were the side mounts here on the RT only, and of course 70 also brought the high back bucket seats, replacing the smaller seats of 69 and before. Also the 4-speed pistol grip shifter inside, present and accounted for. Of course, being an RT, 150 mile an hour speedometer. And again, the EV2 Hemi orange and the white vinyl top, both things that were originally on this car. A 63,000 mile car that was the core that they started a rotisserie restoration. They stripped it down and brought it back to this condition we see here. It's better than new. Beautiful car. And again, only 184 of these cars are built with a 446 pack package in 1970. Great car. Add it to your collection. Hey, I'm Steve Magnante here in Bogart, Georgia at the Tony Townley Collection, which will be sold its entirely on October 24th and 25th by Richmond Auctions. And there's vehicles of all sizes, great and small. This is a 1970 Chevy Yenko Deuce. It's got a small body but a big engine. We'll get into that in a second. Now the term Deuce refers to the Chevy 2, which is what these are based on, the Chevy 2 Nova, and 2 as in Deuce, which is what Don Yenko and the folks at Yenko Chevrolet decided to call these cars, the Yenko Deuce. We see it here on the hood of the car. Yenko Deuce, as in Chevy 2, Deuce. But the big news is under the hood. You see right here, LT1. You might know, when is that? Well, 1970, the LT1 350 debuted in the Camaro Z28 and also certain Corvettes. 370 horsepower in the Corvettes, 360 horsepower in the Z28, and in the little Nova, 360 horsepower. What makes the LT1 special? Let's pop the hood and find out. And you got to remember, the Chevy Nova could be had as the SS. This is not that. The Yenko Deuce is based on a basic Nova two-door coupe. And with the Copo option 9010, that got you the LT1 installed on the assembly line by Chevrolet. You know, unlike certain other muscle cars that were made off campus, these are built at Chevrolet's factory in, I believe, Warren, Michigan. But with that said, the LT1 was installed right at Chevrolet. And again, these are not SSs. These are actually just regular Nova cars which have the LT1. Now, these are engines that have 11-to-1 compression, solid lifters, Holley 4-barrel, and really capable of about 7,000 RPMs. These are giant killers, sort of the wolf in sheep's clothing, if you will. That's what these cars are in many ways. Something kind of cool, we see the wire right here tells us this has the optional Yenko tack, which is hood mounted. We'll scope that out in just a moment. But again, the dual snorkel air cleaner seen on the Z28 Camaro in 1970. And again, the fin valve cover is also part of the LT1 package on Camaro and Corvette in 1970, and just a great example of basically a big engine in a small car, a giant killer of the first order. The Yenko Deuce is based on a very austere platform. We have rubber floor mats, no carpeting to keep costs down, and of course the 4-speed transmission is a close ratio Muncie aluminum case unit. The automatic was available, but this one's a 4-speed car, which is I want, and you probably do want too. Also, we see in here some Dixco gauges. These are aftermarket gauges from Dixco, which is one of the companies that Yenko worked with to provide gauges that were installed at Yenko in Yenko specialty cars. And there they are right there, temperature, oil pressure, and voltage. And all of these things correct. AM radio, nothing spiffy, no tape player, no AM FM, just a regular AM radio. And a great example of it. And of course, the sports steering wheel was something that could be added by Yenko, I believe was standard features in the Deuces, and here we have it here. And speaking of Deuce, you're always reminded that you're riding in a Yenko Deuce. Branding is seen all throughout on the door panels here, Yenko Deuce. These appliques here remind you that you're in a Yenko Deuce and not a Nova Super Sport, but rather something more special than that. A total of 175 of these cars were built, and this is a very special piece. And again, this is a COPO Central Office Production Order 9010, which is how you got the LT1 installed in a Nova right from the factory assembly line. Let's go around to the back. And inside the trunk, we find 3 tidy presentation. Everything here is correct. The Zolatone finishes on all horizontal and vertical surfaces. And we see in the back here the steel wheel right there, painted body color. Those are the standard wheels that would have come on one of these things in basic trim. This does have 14 by 7 inch motor wheel spiders, which are an aftermarket wheel, which could have been installed by Yenko. Of course, Yenko would give you an option of different types of wheels, but this one has motor wheel spiders, if you wondered. And again, just a beautiful example. And don't confuse this with a Nova Super Sport, which have an SS logo here and a different tail. These are not Super Sports. These are Copo cars. And again, the LT1 was not available in a Nova SS in 1970, but only in the Yenko Deuce. Very cool example of a giant killer right here. I'm Steve Magnante here in Bogart, Georgia at the Tony Townley Collection, which will be sold in its entirety on October 24th and 25th by Richmond Auctions. And let's start with this very cool 1970 Plymouth Grand Coupe convertible. It has a Hemi scoop, Hemi Cuda logos, but it's not a Hemi car. You might call it a Phantom, a car that Chrysler never built, Plymouth never made. Of course, the Grand Coupe was usually available as a coupe. Of course, the convertible was possible, and only 596 Grand Coupe convertibles were built in 1970, making it a fairly rare vehicle unto itself. This one was born in L code 383 two-barrel, decent engine, but that's been changed. It's had a heart transplant to a 426 Hemi under that massive hood, and of course, the shaker hood, all these things are parts from Chrysler parts departments, and they're real, no reproduction stuff. These are factory pieces from Dodge and Plymouth, Chrysler. Let's look under the hood and see the mighty elephant. And there it is, the mighty Hemi with the shaker hood scoop right there. And again, this was a 383 two-barrel car. That's fine, that was then. This is now, and it's been resurrected into the Hemi Cuda Grand Coupe convertible that never was, but it's here. The car doesn't know it's a clone. Has the manual drum brakes all the way around, which is fine. Power steering, added nice thing when you have a 700-pound engine over the front wheel, so power steering is a nice bonus. And it's all factory parts. The power steering stuff is from Chrysler, it's not aftermarket. And just a nice example of what could have been in the world of Hemi Cuda production. And of course, 1970 was the first year for the E-body Barracuda platform, which would go through 1974 model year. And of course, its cousin, the Dodge Challenger. These are Dodge and Plymouth's first muscle car pony cars. And of course, the Hemi was very much possible in the Cuda. Hemi Cudas, we know all about those, great cars. But again, this is the Hemi Cuda Grand Coupe convertible that never was. Inside, the Grand Coupe has some interesting details. Let's take a peek inside. Now, the Grand Coupe and the Grand Coupe convertible were luxurious versions of the Barracuda, and a lot of detailed touches inside. Grand Coupe logos on the door panels here, simulated wood appliques inside of the door panels here to give it a touch of luxury, power windows on this one, and of course the Grand Coupe also came with the rally dash with 150 mile-an-hour speedometer and a tachometer built into the gauge cluster. Specific features to the Grand Coupe, whether it's a coupe or a convertible like this one. This one has been a fitted 727 torque flight right here with the slapstick. We can hit gear at a time, hold it up to 5,000 RPM, hit second and go into drive. Probably run somewhere in the high 13s, mid 13s with this car, just as it sits. And nice luxury touches in this one. Great replication of a car that Plymouth never built, but probably should have. And the Grand Coupe came with a lot of cool detail features. Of course, the chrome trim around the back was specific to the Grand Coupe to give it a more luxurious upscale feel. And even the logo back here, Grand Coupe, emulates what we see inside of the car, but it also hides the trunk key location right there. Fold it back, twist the key, turn it, and up pops the trunk. Inside the trunk, we see a nicely restored presentation. And one thing that's kind of cool is this car was built by a place that had access to Plymouth service parts. And everything here is no old stock or NS1, including the Cuda-specific valance with the correct tips, which are correct for a Hemi car, or a Cuda, if you will. But again, these are all brand new parts that were purchased over the counter, never been used on a car before until they were installed on this car. Fresh parts all the way around, no used parts on this thing, it's all quite fresh and new. Inside the back, of course, beyond the spare tire, the space saver spare, here is the original window sticker to the car. And again, it was a 383 two-barrel car. We can see right here, and that was the original motor to this when it was originally built. And again, that was then. This is now. It's got a Hemi. But here's a picture of the car after it was converted to the Hemi with the shaker. The interior, beautifully rendered. And again, here's the total rundown here. The price of this car when it was new was $4,436.95. You know, a great example of provenance and history of the car that comes with it. So a great example here of a Hemi Cuda Grand Coupe convertible. A car that was never built from the factory, but doesn't mean people couldn't build it on their own. That's what's been done here. Hey, I'm Steve Magnante here in Bogart, Georgia at the Tony Townley Collection, which will be auctioned off on October 24th and 25th by Richmond Auctions in a 2-day rip of selling. And one of the vehicles that will be sold is this 1971 Dodge Challenger Indy Pace Car edition. And basically, this is one of 50 cars that were built by Chrysler Corporation Public Relations to be used as a pace car. This is not that car, but with that said, the other 49 cars were given to dignitaries, advertisers, track officials to be used around town, and also dealerships will display these in their window. So as to promote the Indy 500 and the Dodge Challenger, of course. Second and final year for Charger convertibles. This car is not, it's got Hemi orange paint, but with that said, it's not a Hemi car. It's a 318 two-barrel, a very docile car. And again, automatic transmission, bucket seats, of course. And things I like about this car are the graphics here, the official pace car graphics right here, which were applied at the dealership, not by the factory, but these were applied at the dealership. They came in a Dodge envelope or a tube, and you put these on your own, or the dealership would put them on. Of course, the rally wheels, the 14 by 6-inch rally wheels, and kind of a cool thing, the Polygas GT bias ply tires are correct for the car. And of course, the brake drums on these, four-wheel drums on this one, the brake drums are painted red at the factory so that they sort of stare at you in a sinister kind of a cool hot rod way. And a great example right here, beautifully restored car. And let's pop the hood and check out what the engine looks like. Again, don't look for a Hemi or even a 440 or even a 383. You could get the 383 4-barrel or 2-barrel if you wanted it in one of these cars, but this one has the 318 2-barrel. One interesting detail about their pace cars is that they have hood pins right here, which were not available on normal Challengers. And of course, also the flat hood, not an RT hood. But again, they kind of give the car a racy attitude with the hood pins, and they are functional, but so are the hood latches. And let's open them now and see what we find. And there it is. Not much to look at, no chrome, no aluminum, but again, this is the 230 horsepower 318 two-barrel, a workhorse, served millions of families happily over millions of miles throughout the 1970s and into the 80s. The 318 was a great engine, always a two-barrel, single exhaust, but with that said, a reliable workhorse once again. Manual drum brakes on this one, power steering, kind of nice to allow the executives and dignitaries to motor around without working up a sweat. But again, not a muscle car, but again, don't let the Hemi orange paint fool you. It's a docile passenger car of the first order. Like most Challengers, this one does have front bucket seats, a center console, and of course here's the slapstick shifter for the 904 torque flight underneath the tunnel. And again, pretty Spartan car. Has carpeting, etc. Power top, a nice touch. AM radio right here, factory stuff. 120 speedo, not the RT rally dash. A nicely preserved example of the breed here. In 1970 and 71 were the only 2 years the Challenger could be had as a convertible. 72, 3, 4, no more convertibles. So this is the final year for a Challenger convertible. And this one also is one of the 50 cars that were built to celebrate the Indy 500 pace car project. So here it is, one of them, the real deal. New for 1970, the Dodge Challenger was Dodge's first attempt to capture a piece of the pony car market, which Ford held from 1964 all the way through, well, today, with that said. But Dodge Challenger came along in 70, and basically was a compact car, long hood, short deck lid, and under that deck lid is not a lot of room. They're compact cars in many ways, but with that said, I love the paperwork here, the provenance of the car. Here's the build sheet, complete with the window sticker describing how it has the 318 and public relations duties. So basically it was built to show the world the Dodge Indy Pace Car program. 318 two-barrel base motor, and the price on this one, it was new, was $4,011. And here's shots of the original actual pace car in action at the Indy 500. Here's the build sheet from this car, and this was found under the back seat. You can see the spring markations right there. But again, nice provenance to the car, and it's one of the 50 cars that were built to celebrate the Indy 500. Hey, I'm Steve Magnante here in Bogart, Georgia at the Tony Townley Collection, which will be sold at auction on October 24th and 25th, 2025 by Richmond Auctions. And about 110 cars or so will be auctioned on those 2 days. One of them will be this 1970 Dodge Challenger TA. What's a TA? Well, basically TA stands for Trans Am. as in the SCCA's Trans Am Racing Series, and these were built for competition there after full preparation. Keep in mind, too, that the TA Racing Series mandated a 5-liter or 305 cubic inch maximum, thus the Boss 302 Mustang, and of course the Camaro Z28 with its 302. So how did Dodge get away with putting 340s in these things? Well, to go racing in the SCCA, they had to be de-stroked to 305 cubic inches, but for the street-going homologation specials, the 340 was made legal, again, for street use, but again, for racing, you had to de-stroke it to 305 cubes, whole different engine for another day. But with that said, these are very unique cars in many ways. Let's dig in. One detail unique to the Challenger TA was its fiberglass hood with this surface-mounted scoop, which basically draws cool air from the airstream and into the carburetors, and there's 3 of them on these engines, and these are fiberglass hoods once again. And one thing about these hoods is they are lighter than steel by a lot, and with that said, the springs installed by Dodge are thinner and lighter and have less tension than a steel hood spring. What these would do if they were thicker, what they would do is would load the hood on a hot day, would cause the hood to bow. So again, specific hood hinges right there in the springs, but beyond that, the engine is a 340 cubic inch motor with 3 2-barrel Hollies, thus the 6-pack nomenclature. The intake manifold is aluminum from Edelbrock, and these make 290 horsepower, 275 with a single 4-barrel on a lesser Challenger, but again, 290 is under advisement. It's more like 330 or so in reality, but great engines in so many ways. The blocks are specially cast with the letters TA in the side of them. They have more beef in the main web, so if you wanted to drill them for 4-bolt mains, the racers could do this. The meat's there, but it's up to you or the racer to put the 4-bolt caps in these things, but the meat is there. Speaking of that, these have special rocker arms which are adjustable with an offset because the heads have extra meat cast into them, so that if you wanted to hog the ports out, you could do that. It's up to you to hog them out, but with that said, the push rods are offset a little bit, as are the rocker arms, and they're adjustable, so they're unique also to the TA and AAR Cuda, so they're also present and accounted for. And again, here's the air filter element right here, and again, no filter, there's no baffle, no door, there's no provision for rain or snow, and with that said, nice cold air induction, and a great example of a restored piece right here. Now, this car was sold new at Grand Spalding Dodge. If you know your 60s muscle car history, Mr. Norman Kraus ran Grand Spalding Dodge in Chicago for many, many years, and he was kind of the go-to place on the east and northeast edge of the country to get muscle cars. And Grand Spalding Dodge is sort of a seal of approval. Anybody who buys a car from Grand Spalding Dodge, it's sort of a cherry on top of the car in every way. Now this one here could have one of 2 different transmissions, a 4-speed or an automatic. Let's go inside and take a look and see what we find. 2 transmission possibilities were available. Of course, the Torque Flight automatic, or this, the Pistol Grip 4-speed. I'll take the 4-speed, thank you very much. Hearst linkage, Hearst handle, of course the mighty Pistol Grip. This one has the AM radio, that's fine. And again, really well preserved, nice example inside and out. Better than stock by far. And again, just show-winning combination happening right here. Again, the 4-speed, the 346 pack, what's not to like? One cool detail I love about these cars is the side pipe exhaust. It comes out in front of the rear tires, not seen on any other Challenger or Mopar muscle car then or since. Side pipes are cool. And inside the trunk, of course, the AAR and TA have this cool little deck spoiler right here. And inside the trunk, nicely presented, beautifully restored, has the Space Saver spare, which is part of the package. The E-bodies were pretty compact back here, so the Space Saver spare by BF Goodrich prevented you from driving on a flat. Also has the bottle full of compressed gas to fill it up to limp home on. And something else you won't see on one of these things is an antenna up on the front fender, rather because the fiberglass hood wouldn't prevent ignition signals from getting to the radio. The antennas on all these cars are at the back, right here. That's correct for the Challenger TA, and that's why on these cars, the antenna, which ordinarily would be on the front fender, is here, and that's a correct detail seen on this one. Great restoration. And in the back, we see a lot of details, a lot of documentation, and let's open the binder and see what we can find. Lots of cool stuff in here. Let's dig in. And here's the window sticker from this car. It was sold originally out of Grand Spalding Dodge in Chicago, and most importantly, we have the TA package right here, $865.70, which includes the 346 pack, heavy-duty brakes, discs up front, special shock absorbers, fiberglass hood, etc., all those good things. And of course, the 4-speed manual was $194 over the automatic, go figure. And the Sure Grip differential, not standard, 4235, and all these goodies right here. And again, Top Banana is the paint code on this one right here. And just a great piece of documentation. That's the window sticker from this car when it was built and sold in 1970 by Mr. Norm. Next up we have the IBM card. This is something that was used at Chrysler Corporation to control the assembly line, to punch out the proper pieces and parts and spit them out on the assembly process. And this is IBM code, as it were, for punch card. That's what it is, a punch card, a primitive mechanical computer. And then we go to Grand Spalding. This is the sales contract here, showing all the goodies on it, the tires, the sure grip, all the things that were baked into it. So $3,710.15 was the sticker price on this car back in 1970. And then finally we have something cool here, magazine coverage. Everybody wants to have their car in a magazine. This is the car on the cover of Muscle Car Review, and here's the full story inside. Nice centerfold shot right there. This goes with the car, obviously, and is part of the car's story and history. Hey, I'm Steve Magnante here in Bogart, Georgia at the Tony Townley Collection, which will all be sold entirely on October 24th and 25th by Richmond Auctions. From beginning to end, 2 days of fantastic vehicles being sold. And one of the great ones is this 1970 Dodge Hemi Super B. Of course, the Hemi was the King Kong engine from Chrysler Corporation, made from '66 through 1971 in production form and street trim. And the Super B, as we see here, is one of the nastiest critters of the bunch. Of course, the Super B was a more affordable version of the Coronet RT, which of course fell below the Charger RT. But again, the Super B, kind of a bare-fisted street racer, street brawler. Great example of burnt orange paint, the factory color on this one here. And I love the Ram Charger hood scoops, two of them here, which feed air into the dual quads underneath the hood. Let's pop the hood and take a look at the mighty 426 elephant-powered engine. And here it is, old King Kong himself, the 426 Hemi, conservatively rated at 425 horsepower, more like 450, 460, 470, really depending on the state of tune. And of course, 490 foot-pounds of torque. A very conservatively rated engine. And again, 10 1/4 to 1 compression, twin Carter AFBs, 625 CFM times 2, plenty for this 426 to breathe all the way to 6,500 RPM at wide open. And a great example of a beautiful restoration, again, burnt orange paint all the way around. And speaking of paint, here on the radiator support, there's an autograph by Tom Hoover. If you know your Chrysler history, Tom Hoover was the chief engineer on the Max Wedge program, the Street Hemi program, and the Race Hemi program. Tom Hoover signed this car, which automatically kind of makes it, kind of blesses the car in a lot of ways. So here we have the big 26-inch wide 3-core Hemi radiator, standard fare with the Hemi cars. And this one has the standard manifolds in place, which is cool, no headers, not been modified. Now this is a replacement engine block. However, the transmission and rear axle are original to this car. And around here we see manual drum brakes, which is fun. The drum brakes on this are massive, 11x3s in the front, 11x2.5s in the back, plenty of braking power. Disc brakes were an option, but not seen here. That's okay. And this one does have manual steering. Less can be a lot more. You know, power steering was available on the Street Hemi, but it sapped some power. It's kind of bulky and kind of in the way. So manual steering, manual brakes, you're going to get a good workout driving this car in anger or in fun. Let's go inside the car and see which transmission backs up the mighty 426 Hemi. And while the Torque Flight automatic was available behind the Hemi, this one has the mighty 4-speed right here, the pistol grip Hurst shifter. And again, the Hemi cars had 18-tooth 4-speed transmission with a tougher input shaft than the 23-tooth unit used on 383 cars and below. So again, pretty much an indestructible transmission behind that mighty 426 Hemi. You see something here, it says Carb Air. This thing right here, you pull it out, say a Ram Air GTO pulls up next to you at the light, well, you pull this out, opens the scoops, so the Hemi can ingest nice, cool, dense, fresh air. It's a manual override, Carb Air right there. It opens flaps on the underside of the air grabber under the hood. 150 mile an hour speedometer, tachometer in place, all of these things standard fare on this car. And again, wood steering wheel an option. Pretty cool piece to see right there. It looks like wood, but it's plastic, but it looks the part. Aluminum spokes right here, pretty cool looking piece. And again, this is a hardtop, not the sedan, which is another possibility in Super B land. But again, the hardtop, a little sleeker car. And again, the burnt orange metallic, also known as turbine bronze, beautiful color, very tasteful color, very subtle color, and it really brings out the lines of the Super B to maximum effect. Dodge advertising of the time called these the Scat Pack, the cars with the bumblebee stripes, as evidenced by the stripe here around the side of the car, and of course the die-cast metal Super Bee logo right here, and the angry bee getting ready to hunt down a GTO and kick its butt. Okay, let's open the trunk and see what we find. And by the way, the deck lid, spoiler in this, Dodge did a thing called the Muscle Stuff catalog, and you can actually buy things like this over the counter. Not a factory installed item, but this is an add-on that you get over the counter at a Dodge dealership and looks good on the car. Let's open the trunk and check it out. And just nicely restored inside, beautifully presented paint here. And here are the braces here to support the deck lid with the weight of the spoiler on the top of it. And here we have kind of a cool thing. Magazine coverage is a nice feature. This is Mopar Action magazine right here. This very car was featured in Mopar Action. Nice color feature right there, this car at a car show way back when. And to be recognized in car magazines is a major feather in the car's hat. And here we have here this is somebody brought this out. Basically, one of 21 Hemi 4-speed hardtops built, factory burnt orange metallic paint, a warranty replacement block, which is okay. On matching numbers AFB carburetors, those are rare and hard to find. Factory ram air hood, the air grabber. Matching 4-speed tranny and Dana 60 rear axle. By the way, the Dana 60 is one of the toughest rear axles in the business. 9 3/4 inch ring gear, it's there underneath the tail. 354 gears, good for highway and acceleration. And it's a full 2-year restoration. And it says dealer option added go ring and rally wheels in place. So again, a beautiful example of the mighty Super Bee in its next to last year of production. 1971, the Super Bee would continue on the larger Charger platform, but a very different car in many ways. But again, the Super Bee logo was used through 1971, and after that it'd be gone. But again, here it is in the next to last year, the Super Bee, the mighty Super Bee. Hey, I'm Steve Magnante here in Bogart, Georgia at the Tony Townley Collection, which will be sold by Richmond Auctions on October 24th and 25th of this year, 2025. Now, this is a 1970 and a half Ford Falcon, but it's not like Grandma's Falcon. Now, it's true the Falcon launched in 1960 as a competitor to the Chevy Nova, the Corvette, and of course the Mopar Valiant and Lancer. By 1970 and a half, you get a 429 Cobra jet in a Falcon. Now, you might wonder, what is a Ford Falcon? Well, in 1970 and a half, the Falcon was in its final year of production, giving way to the Torino and Fairlane. But again, this is a base model, the body-wise. This is the one with the 2-door post body style. You couldn't get this body style in any other Fairlane or Torino. Strictly Falcons were built potentially with this post body style. But the big news on this car is under the hood. 429 cubic inches, which is something that the guys at Ford never envisioned in 1960 when the Falcon was originally hatched. 1970 brought something new under the hood of the Torino and Falcon, the 429 cubic inch Cobra jet. Now 69 was the last year for the 428, gave way to this, a very different engine family, the 385 series or Lima family, whatever you want to call it. But this is the ultimate expression, the Cobra jet with solid lifters, 11.3 to 1 compression, and 4-bolt main caps, a tough engine. This one, of course, has the ram air shaker induction right here. Aluminum valve covers seen only on a 375 horsepower version. Again, solid lifters in these engines, and just a tough machine. Very original under the hood, including the emissions equipment right here, the smog pump, the thermactor equipment, still very much in place. And of course, this one being a 430 axle ratio car, has the engine oil cooler right here. And the idea with that is to keep the oil thick for better lubricity when it gets hot. And so the engine oil cooler makes that possible. Also, there's the engine RPM limiter right here. And again, a nice restoration of an original Arizona car. And in fact, most of the paint on this car is original to it. And let's go inside and check out what we can learn there. And inside this 70 and a half Ford Falcon, it was built specifically for acceleration. Less is more, no luxury amenities of any kind. Vinyl bench seat, no buckets, no console. Again, radio delete, so the radio might have weighed 4 pounds. Well, that slows your car down, you get rid of it. So this is a factory radio delete car. Of course, 4-speed close ratio top loader transmission. And the biggest thing on this thing is the rear axle ratio. It's a 430 ratio with a Detroit locker differential in there, not a track lock, a Detroit locker, the ratcheting differential. And this is meant for acceleration, a mean, lean muscle machine. Let's go inside the trunk and see what we find there. And inside the trunk, we'll find lots of detail and correct appearances. And here it is here. The original Calypso coral paints, original to this car, largely unrestored. Exterior paint and inside here is original to the car, including the orange painted 14x7 wheels, the poverty wheels, and inside the trunk mat, everything in here is very beautiful. And this car has 2,794 miles. That's it, 2,794. It's basically brand new. Great example of the breed. And here's the Marty report, which authenticates what the car was originally born with. We see right here, it came with, it was built at Atlanta, the J Code 428 Ram Air engine Cobra Jet, which has 11.4 to 1 compression, 375 horsepower with solid lifters, mechanical choke on that Holley 780 CFM carburetor. And of course, it's good to see that it has Detroit locker, 430. Close ratio 4-speed transmission. And again, over here, some statistics right here. It says that there were 382 cars built with Calypso coral paint, which is largely original on this car. And of course, 360 with these paint and trim codes. And the engine and transmission, the 429 Cobra Jet with the close ratio 4-speed, 52 cars were built with this engine and transmission combination. And Detroit locker, 85 cars were built with the Detroit locker. And a great example of the kind of provenance and authentication that comes with a well-documented Ford muscle car. Hey, I'm Steve Magnante here in Bogart, Georgia with the Tony Townley Collection, which will be sold by Richmond Auctions on October 24th and 25th. And something special behind me is a 1970 Ford Mustang Mach 1, but beyond that, it's a 428 Super Cobra Jet with the W Code 430 drag pack rear axle. We'll find out more about that in a moment, but in the meantime, let's check out the 428 Super Cobra Jet under the hood scoop. And again, the R Code Super Cobra Jet came with the standard Ram Air scoop right there. It does function, has a vacuum switch at the bottom of the air cleaner base, which admits cool air into the shaker, which breathes that air into the shrouded air cleaner for cooler, denser intake charge. So it makes a little more power. These are rated 335 horsepower. I dare say it's more like 400. Ford was definitely playing fast and loose with the numbers at this point in time, but easy 400 horsepower out of this W Code Super Cobra Jet 428. Let's pop the hood and see what we find. And here's that mighty shaker. Now, 1970 was the year of the shaker all throughout Detroit. Challenger and Barracuda had a shaker, which was manually operated. It had to pull a cable. Pontiac Trans Am had a shaker, which was also functional. And of course, Mach 1 Mustangs and also regular Mustangs could be had with a shaker hood. And what it does, it shakes and wiggles with the engine at idle or full throttle. But here is the opening right here. But the only way this works is at wide open throttle. There's a vacuum motor that opens a door that lets air go into the shaker and then into the engine for a cooler, denser mixture for more power. Now, these were rated at 330 laughable horsepower, more like 400, pretty potent engines right out of the box. This one's a Super Cobra Jet, which means it has the oil cooler right here, which displaces the horns from this side of the radiator wall to this side to make room for the engine oil cooler, found only on Super Cobra Jet cars, which is what we have here. Beautiful example of the breed. Again, the shaker, 1970, the year of the shaker throughout muscle car legends then and now. Let's look inside. Inside the Mach 1, we see the standard issue bucket seats up front, and of course the top loader 4-speed transmission, close ratio. It feeds into a 430 gear set under the back seat area for amazing acceleration. And again, 428 Super Cobra Jet, great example of a beautifully restored car. Numbers matching car, too, by the way. And speaking of the interior of this car, the bucket seats fold forward, and this has the optional sport deck back seat. We can see right here, the seat actually folds up to give you a cargo area back there to provide room for extra large objects. Just a great example, crisp restoration. And here it is. Speaking of that trunk, let's find out what we see inside of it. Two great things on this car are the spoilers and slats. The spoilers on the deck lid and under the chin, and the slats right here. Optional things that were not baked into the car. But we know these are original to this car because we have the original Marty report right here. Of course, Kevin Marty, the guru of all things blue oval, and it tells us the car was originally built with these features, including, of course, the W Code 430 rear axle, and of course, the spoilers and slats were born here from the factory. Again, a numbers matching car, and great example of a restoration. And again, something cool about this too is the spoiler on this thing adds a little bit of weight, so there's actually a secondary support right here just to keep wind from blowing it down in your fingertips. And that's something you find on spoiler-equipped Mustang Mach 1s. And we have it here, all of it presented correctly in wonderful color. Hey, I'm Steve Magnante here in Bogart, Georgia at the Tony Townley Collection, where on October 24th and 25th of 2025, the entire inventory will be sold at auction, courtesy of Richmond Auctions, who will be selling everything. With that said, I'm looking forward to seeing this 1970 AAR Cuda sell at auction. It's a very clean, numbers matching restoration. Let's dig in and see what makes this one so special. One really cool detail on the AAR Cuda is the sort of matte finish on the front fender tops, and it goes all the way to the cowl and the tops of the doors and even the B-pillars. Cool effect right here. Wouldn't want to have to paint that in an assembly line situation. It really gives this car a lot of eyeball. Beautiful restoration. Once again, Dave Wise has verified this car being numbers matching. Again, a beautiful restoration. Fiberglass hood right here. This is always open. There's no air door, no air grabber, no flapper. This is open to the air filter at all times, and underneath that is the mighty 346 pack. Now, what does 6-pack mean, or 6-barrel? That means 3 Holley 2-barrel carburetors, about 1,000 CFM, and this motor makes 290 horsepower, and that's the factory rating, more like probably 340 or so in reality, but a nice restoration, the correct TA block, which has provisions for 4-bolt mains. If you machine them yourself, it's up to you to do that, but the meat is there if you want to make it into a 4-bolt main block. And of course, it has special cylinder heads with offset rocker arms, which make room for extra large ports. If you port them, again, that's up to you. And the bottom line was, racers would buy these things and modify them for SCCA road course racing and be competitive by making those changes. So those are things that were built into the car, but it was up to the racer to make it really happen and to blossom, if you will. And also on these things, they have a fiberglass hood. We can see that there, but the springs on the hoods are kind of light, so they don't really hold it up that well, but they're smaller diameter, but there they are, correctly presented. And this one does have power disc brakes, which was standard feature on the AAR Cuda. And this one could be had with 2 different kinds of transmissions. We'll see what those are in just a moment. This does have power steering, which was an option, fast ratio power steering, and a crisp restoration underneath the hood. Very great looking car. So let's drop the hood and have a peek inside and see which transmission we have. Well, 2 transmissions were possible, the Torque Flight Automatic, which we see here, or the 4-speed, and beautifully restored inside. Has the optional sport wheel right here, sort of a wood grain effect, and 120 mile an hour speedometer, AM radio right here, and console in the center. All these things were optional right here, and just a great example of a freshly restored AAR Cuda 346 pack. Numbers matching car. Usually when you think of a 1970 Cuda, you imagine dual exhaust coming through the rear valance right here, some stainless tips. Well, not on the AAR, because these have side pipes, or side exit exhaust, I should say. So no tailpipes here. The rear valance is solid, which is correct for an AAR. Inside of the deck lid, and speaking of the deck lid, here's the spoiler on the back, which is specific to the AAR. Very nice. And of course, Cuda logo here, blacked out in the tail. Very arrogant, an aggressive looking car in so many ways. Now inside the trunk, correctly presented, the body color here, all sprayed at the same time at the assembly line. And inside, of course, the Space Saver spare tire with the inflation canister right there, correctly presented. And of course, the trunk mat, fresh and new, and some cool documentation inside of the trunk. Let's take a peek and see what we find. And here's the window sticker to the car. It was sold new at Culpeper Chrysler Plymouth in Cullman, Alabama. Here is AAR Cuda, base price $39.66, on top of which was added the light group, A01, which includes the road lights under the front bumper, and also the console, extra cost $53.35, seat adjustable, manual 6-way seats, 340 engine, Torque Flight was free, no extra charge. That was the base transmission. Racing mirrors, right-hand side, AM radio for 61, tape stripes, 6155. Tires, interesting, G6015 at the back and E6015 at the front. Bigger tires in the back than the front, which is by design. Chrysler wanted to give these cars sort of a nose-down stance for sort of a road racy feel, and there you got it. Now you might wonder, what was AAR? What did it mean? It stood for Dan Gurney's All-American Racers, which was Dan Gurney's race team. So AAR Cuda, and that was adorned on each one of these things on the rear quarters, so red, white, and blue, very patriotic. Hey, I'm Steve Magnante here in Bogart, Georgia at the Tony Townley Collection, where on October 24th and 25th, there's going to be a 2-day auction run by Richmond Auctions, where there's going to be about 101 or so vehicles sold, some of them at no reserve. And one thing I'm looking forward to, and if you're a Ford guy, you're going to dig this. It's a 1970 Mercury Cougar Eliminator. One thing that's cool about this car, it's a Boss 302, a G-code car, and of the total 2,268 Cougar Eliminators built in 1970, only 146 got the Boss 302 engine under the hood. Now you got to remember, the Boss 302 was a very special engine. It was a 302, but it wasn't a Windsor. It was a Cleveland-style canted valve small block with an aluminum intake manifold, a Holley 4-barrel, solid lifters, 290 underrated horsepower. Let's take a peek at it. And again, the beauty of the Mercury Cougar is the fact that the hideaway headlights were standard equipment right here from 67 onward. Very menacing and aggressive looking grille at the front of these cars. And let's take a peek inside here. And there it is. This car is one of 306 built in competition yellow. And a detail we find here, of course, is standard issue, the chrome air cleaner lid, the die-cast aluminum valve covers on these, and of course the RPM, the Autolite rev limiter right here, it's set to 6,150 RPM. So if you exceed that number, the ignition cuts out. And that's something that Ford put on all of their, extra performance engines of this time. And again, it's all here. It's a 4-speed car, as all Boss 302s were. No automatic Boss 302s of any kind. But again, this is a Boss 302 powered Cougar Eliminator. The options were, of course, the 394 barrel, the 428, and also a 351 Windsor was a possibility. So this is the lightest, most proficient small block of the bunch. And again, only 146 of these cars were assembled. This one has the deluxe Moddy report. We have it here, and it shows all the data here. And Kevin Marty does a report on your car. It means everything's there and correct and accounted for. And of course, this also was on the cover of Hemmings Muscle Machines. And everybody wants to have their car on the cover of a magazine. And here it is, Hemmings Muscle Machines right here. This is the October 2004 issue, and the car got a full feature, including a cover shot. So that's kind of money in the bank if you're a car fanatic. It's nice to have your car on the cover of something like Hemmings, and there it is. And again, a nice restoration, a competition yellow, a very appealing color, and of course the contrast with the black stripes. The illuminated stripes are part of the picture here. So a great example of the breed with Moddy report, and a really nice running car. So bid accordingly. Hey, I'm Steve Magnante here in Bogart, Georgia at the Tony Townley Collection, which will be sold in its entirety on October 24th and 25th by Richmond Auctions. And one of the star vehicles in the collection is this 1970 Ford Mustang GT500 convertible, Shelby, of course. And it's the only one built with this color combination with the 428 Super Drag Pack and in candy apple red, the only one verified. And it's a great example of a restored vehicle. It was a very straight car when it was originally found and owned by one guy for many, many years. But with that said, the restoration was done on a perfect car, which made it even more perfect, if you can imagine that. It's a beautiful car. And again, 1970 was the year that the GT500 sort of reached its pinnacle. The 70s are different from 69s. Of course, black painted hood inserts, chin spoiler from the Boss 302. Things were added to make the 70 different from the 69. But again, these were fairly popular. Well, with that said, of the 470 GT500 Mustangs made in 1970, only 90 were convertibles like this one. And the money on this car really is the fact that it's a Super Cobra Jet 428 car. What does that mean? Let's pop the hood and find out. Of course, this is a 335 horsepower engine. Theoretically, it's more like 410 for sure. It was underrated, who knows why, but it did the job. But again, the Super Cobra Jet included Super Duty parts, 427 Le Mans style rods, and an engine oil cooler when you had the V-code 391 axle ratio in the back, which made drag strip action better, highway cruising not so much fun. But with that said, this kept the oil nice and thick, the oil cooler only on Super Cobra Jet cars. And of course, the standard fare on the GT500 was a cold air hood right here made of fiberglass. And beautifully rendered and restored. All the emission stuff is here. Everything is there. The backfire valve, the aluminum valve covers, which are correct for the car. And again, this car, since it was new, has 38,466 miles, and that's since new. And this car has won a lot of awards too, by the way. It won a silver award at the Mustang Club of America, and also a first place at the Antique Auto Club of America in 2010. So accolades from those who know. It's the best of the best. And again, it's one of one in candy apple red with this drivetrain package. And again, one of only 90 GT500 convertibles built in 1970, the final year for the GT500. Interior is beautiful, 4-speed close ratio transmission, and the factory graphics on this is beautiful. The reflective tape stripes on the side, part of the GT500 appearance package, and the tail trunk spoiler right here, which also was standard fare on the GT500. It also has the glass convertible window right there, 2-piece glass, but it's not plastic, it's glass. And again, just a delicious restoration on a GT500 convertible. Again, very rare car, special car, multiple award winner, been in magazines, has the Marty report to prove its authenticity and its provenance. So bid strong. It's probably the only one of its, it is the only one of its color and drivetrain combination known to exist. So bid strong. Hey, I'm Steve Magnante here in Bogart, Georgia at the Tony Townley Collection, where on October 24th and 25th, over 100 collectible vehicles will be sold by Richmond Auctions in a 2-day blur of buying and selling. One of the great examples of what will be sold during that auction will be this 1970 Olds 442 convertible. It's one of 549 cars built in 1970. It's a 4-speed car, and it's loaded with options. It has power steering, power brakes, power windows, power door locks, power trunk release, all those things, optional extra equipment, and baked into this car from day one. It's a numbers matching car, fully restored by Thornton Brothers down in Pennsylvania. They do the best work. They're the best of the best when it comes to Olds 442 restorations. Let's pop the hood and have a look. These are the Superstock 1 wheels, which are an option on 442, present and accounted for. And of course, the W25 fiberglass hood, we see it right here with the hold downs here. We pop the hood by pulling this release down here, and the secondary release comes here. And again, fiberglass hood, beautifully rendered. And underneath, there's the mighty 455 Olds big block engine. Cold air system right here, fed by the fiberglass hood scoops right there. And a detail on this is the underside of this hood is steel right here to keep the skin from warping in the sun. But again, the outer side is fiberglass, correctly rendered by Thornton Brothers Restorations. A beautiful restoration right on the T3 guide headlights on all 4 corners. And T3 stands for tilt down degrees and outboard 3 degrees when you're aligning the headlights. So correct details from stem to stern. Inside, of course, 4-speed car, one of only 549 built with the 455 and the 4-speed in 1970. And beautifully restored bucket seats, of course, 4-speed manual transmission, which really makes the difference in a car like this. You got to remember that in the 442 came out in 1964. 442 meant 4-barrel, 4-speed, dual exhaust. But by 1970, it meant 455. 4-speed was an option, and dual exhaust, of course, standard equipment on this. It has a stainless exhaust system on this with the trumpet tips coming out the bumper. And again, a beautiful restoration, power disc brakes up front, and a bid strong. It's one of the best on the breed. Hey, I'm Steve Magnante here in Bogart, Georgia at the Tony Townley Collection, where on October 24th and 25th of 2025, Richmond Auctions will be holding a 2-day auction selling just over 100 special vehicles, many of them at no reserve. One of the cars I'm looking forward to is this 1970 Plymouth Roadrunner convertible. Now in 1970, the Roadrunner, there were a total of 43,404 Roadrunners built. Of them, 824 were convertibles. Of those 824, only 34 were 446-pack powered. Of those 446-barrel cars, only 20 came with a 4-speed. This is an unrestored example, numbers matching vehicle, originally painted at the factory in ice blue. You can see it on the original 15x7 rims. Resprayed sometime in the early 1970s, this orangish red color, but again, ice blue metallic was the original shade on this car. It's a numbers matching car, loaded car, power steering, power brakes. It also has a super track pack 410 Dana rear axle option. So a scooting Roadrunner, if ever there was a Roadrunner that could run down the road, this would have been it. Power disc brakes, of course, part of the super track package. And under the hood, of course, speaking of that hood, we have the air grabber, which was standard fare on the 446 barrel motor. Let's pop that hood and have a look. And again, a loaded car, power windows, very strange power top, of course, and must have been a looker in its day. And I'm sure that a restoration of this car would be expensive, but very much well worth it. The only one of its kind. 20 of these were built in 1970. How many are left is anyone's guess. And there it is, the mighty 446 barrel. In Dodge land, it's a 6-pack. In Plymouth land, it's a 6-barrel. Either way, there's 3 Holley 2-barrel carburetors underneath there. Cast iron manifold for 1970 versus the aluminum stuff used in 1969. That's fine. The air grabber stuff here, present and accounted for. And here's the duct work up here that's vacuum operated, this little motor right here. When you flip the switch onto the dash, this thing pops up. So you're sitting next to a GTO. If he doesn't already hear the 446 barrel under the hood, he's going to see this thing pop up and probably find another way home and won't try to challenge you. It's a great example, and again, under the hood, a lot of the original ice blue metallic paint is present. 26-inch wide, heavy-duty radiator, part of this 446 barrel, of course, super track pack, 410 gears in this, again, from the factory, pretty aggressive little critter. And Dave Wise, his Dave Wise report in process with this car, and it, of course, comes with the car validating what it is, and numbers matching car from front to back. Beautiful example, and again, only 20 of these were built with a 444 barrel or 446 barrel and the 4-speed transmission. So really, really a rare bird, literally. So bid strong. It's a rare bird, and you know, a red hot piece after a restoration. Even now, it's a wonderful piece to look at. So bid strong. Hey, I'm Steve Magnante here in Bogart, Georgia, at the Tony Townley Collection, where on October 24th and 25th, Richmond Auctions will be selling about 110 collector cars of all descriptions. One of them is this 1970 Plymouth Superbird. A very cool car. It's a survivor with the minimum miles. It has 7,964 miles on it. It's never been restored. 446 pack, 4-speed, great car. Let's dig in. Like its stablemate, the 1969 Dodge Charger Daytona, the 70 Plymouth Superbird is similar but not the same. It has the same nose but not the same stamping by any stretch. It also has the folding headlights, but with that said, the shape of this is very different from the Charger Daytona. But again, this is made out of steel, not fiberglass. And like the Daytona, these are made of fiberglass, but that's the only fiberglass parts on this car. And again, steel here, aluminum at the tail. We'll get to the tail in a moment. But under the hood of this could be one of three possibilities. The 426 Street Hemi, or the 444 barrel, or this, the mighty 446 barrel, which is 390 horsepower. Thanks to the trio of Holley 2-barrel carburetors and that big orange air cleaner, this has 390 horsepower and 490 foot-pounds of torque. About the most engine you could get in a Superbird short of the 426 Hemi, and that's saying a lot. And of all the Superbirds built, there were 716 cars built with the 446 back, and a total of 1,935 Superbirds were built in total in 1970. Now, something cool about this is it's very much unrestored. If it looks dingy under the hood, that's on purpose. It's unrestored. It's got a lot of patina. It's honest. I like it. And to take this car and spiff it up and shine it would be to erase a lot of its history. And it has a lot of history. And again, 7,964 miles, but well cared for miles in this case. And coming around to this side, like all Roadrunners, the beep beep horn is very much still in place. There it is right there. Something weird about the beep beep horn, it's the only one in Chrysler history, really, which is mounted with thin mounts that allow it to resonate, to go beep. It actually wiggles. And also the purple paint on this with the Warner Brothers 7-Art sticker on there, because of course Warner Brothers licensed the character to Plymouth for use on the Roadrunner. Beep, beep, now you know. Let's take a look inside and find out what kind of transmission's backing up this 446 barrel. And what a nice surprise. While many Superbirds had the Chrysler Torque Flight, a good transmission, this one has the A833 4-speed with the pistol grip shifter and Hurst shift linkage right here. And again, the 440 engines and the Hemis came from the 18-tooth transmission, which was stronger than the 23-tooth 4-speed used in 383 and lesser 4-speed applications. So a tough transmission to stand the guff of that 490 foot-pound 446 barrel on the other side of the firewall. Very nicely presented, all original inside. The seat covers everything original. 150 mile-an-hour speedometer, tachometer from the factory, AM radio right here, all of it correct and as it was back in the day. And again, 7,964 miles have passed since this car was originally built, and a great example of the breed. Now the big news is at the nose and at the tail on any Superbird. Let's take a look at the tail. And while the pointed nose on the Superbird helps it cut through the air and look better at high speeds on the super speedways, the tail airfoil here generates downforce again at 150 to 205 mile-an-hour race speeds at Daytona, Talladega, etc. And it's not fiberglass. It's similar to the one on Daytona, but like the one on the Daytona, it's also made of aluminum. It's a different design in many ways. It's a little more swept, but again, it does the same job as it would on a Daytona. And of course, on the Superbird on the street, it adds a whole bunch of eyeball appeal. Nothing as outrageous as this was made by any other automaker in the 1960s or 70s. Kind of a cool design. Inside the trunk, which is limited on it by its hinges to not hit the deck lid right there. There's some welded on tabs that keep it from hitting the wing, but again, this is for creating downforce at racing speeds at speedway NASCAR races. Inside the trunk, a whole bunch of documentation, and again, it's 7,964 mile car, unrestored, ton of paperwork. Let's check that stuff out. And here's a ring binder full of goodies that document this car's journey from Lynch Road to, hopefully, your driveway. And here's the window sticker to the car. The car was sold to Forbes Boulevard, Mansfield, Massachusetts. 446-pack car. Original price was $4,643.70. And this gives the rundown of what's in it. Track pack, which means the 354 Dana 60 rear axle, power disc brakes, manual transmission, of course that 4-speed pistol group, you saw that inside, 446 barrel engine, hood-mounted tie-down pins, tachometer, power steering, special order vinyl roof, which was mandatory with the Superbird to cover up the surgery scars from the roof plug that they put in at the factory. And of course, a lot of interesting details here. All of this very much original to the car goes with it. And then moving beyond that, we have the original broadcast sheet, or build sheet, whatever you want to call it. This is basically the DNA. This followed the car down the assembly line and pretty much gave the builders instructions on exactly which options to add to the car. And here it is, the sequence number, order number, etc. RM23V, the V 5th spot 6-barrel engine, 390 horse. All of it very correct, and here it is. The documentation in this car is very nice to see. There's also a magazine article right here from Mopar Collector's Guide, and this one here is a full cover story on the car, 2003, 22 years ago this was done, and it shows the car in its current form, and again, it's unrestored, and warts and all, as they say, and those warts are beautiful because it's, scars from a life lived well. Gentle, by the way, and of course, we also have pictures here. Galen Govier's GTS. Galen Govier is one of the authorities on decoding and verifying cars. And these are pictures of the underside of the car. An unrestored Superbird. And here's the panel, the bits underneath the car, underside of the oil pan right there, and all the little things that make it. The original mufflers are still in place. The exhaust, the block, never been resprayed. And just a great example of preservation and originality marching hand in hand. Hey, I'm Steve Magnante here in Bogart, Georgia at the Tony Townley Collection, which on October 24th and 25th of 2025 will be sold by Richmond Auctions in its entirety. About 102 vehicles. Some are red-hot collectibles, including this 1971 Hemi Cuda. It's a fully restored numbers matching car. 426 Hemi, of course, 727 torque flight, shifter on the console on the floor, which is very cool. 410 Dana car. It's a factory 410 Dana super track pack piece, and beautifully restored. Very much rust-free shell, 100-point restoration. And let's begin our walk around. True blue metallic, of course, 1971 specific Cuda fenders here. The 15x7 wheels with, correct for 1971, argent center caps. The right F7015 Goodyear Polyglass GT front and rear tires. Of course, the noses, the 1971 brought the new Cuda grille with 4 headlights versus 2 for 1970. So Plymouth made moves to improve and more specify the breed, as it were. Of course, the Hemi cars, the shaker, there it is right there, very much in charge, and that actually quivers and wiggles as a car is going down the road. Hit the gas, it shakes like that. It lives up to its name. The shaker truly is a thing to behold in action. Speaking of behold, let's open the hood and see what we can find. And here it is, the mighty Elephant Street Hemi, and beautifully restored under the hood. Everything is correctly presented. A lot of old New Oil stock pieces on this car. A lot of the original panels are clearly still present. 26-inch wide radiator, automatic car with the transmission cooler, which is factory correct stuff. The shaker present and accounted for, nothing missing. The flaps and the doors inside are all there and functional. And let's go around to the side of the car, and of course the Barracuda in its second year on the E-body platform, 70 through 74, but 70 and 71 are the only 2 years you get a Hemi or the big engines. After 72 is all small blocks and 6 cylinders. So this is kind of the end of the road for the mighty Cuda, or Hemi Cuda, which is what this is. Vinyl top. Something kind of weird about this car, the usual Hemi Cuda stripe down the side right here, the hockey stick stripe is missing on this one because it was deleted. There's a thing called VO1 monotone paint, which is a delete option, so you didn't have the stripe here, which would be seen on a fully dressed Hemi Cuda for 1971. So just a beautiful example of the breed right here, and the billboard is what you would have had in 71. But anyway, go down to the back here, and again, beautifully presented, and no hot rodding, nothing at all, no Craigers, nothing like that. It's all 100% factory original. It has the Dave Wise report, which is money in the bank. Dave Wise, of course, goes from front to back, verifying the date codes and everything. This car got like a full report from Dave Wise, verifying that it's a very clean restoration, very correct car. And again, there were only 48 automatic Hemi Cudas built in 1971, and this is one of them. And the paperwork is in the trunk here. We see the build sheet is present and accounted for. A picture of the car on somebody's yard when it was sort of in the mid-70s, just sort of defunct and getting ready to be saved and loved. But again, all kinds of things. Owner's manual, magazine article. And here's the Dave Wise report right here. It's a multi-page document here that walks you through every detail of the car, including how many were built and the date codes. And Dave digs in deep on these things. So everything from the differential to the transmission case, they're all date code correct. He goes through these cars. So this is basically money in the bank, the Wise report. So it's a great example of the breed, and Hemi E-bodies are white-hot collector cars. Whether you're a Mopar guy, a Ford guy, GM, you want a Hemi Cuda in your collection. Bid strong. It's a good one. Hey, I'm Steve Magnante here in Bogart, Georgia at the Tony Townley Collection, where on October 24th and 25th of 2025, a little over 100 cars will be sold by Richmond Auctions, many of them at no reserve. One of the specialties that I'm looking for is this 1971 Hemi Cuda. In the Mopar world, the 71 Hemi Cuda is one of the pinnacle vehicles for any collector or collection. Only 107 of these cars were built in 1971, the final year for the Hemi-powered E-body. Everybody wants one. You want one too. This one's very special. It's a full restoration, has the 4-speed, the Hemi, of course, under the hood with the shaker hood, standard fare on the Hemi. Of course, 1971 brought us the Guild fenders right here, 71 only on Cudas, and present and accounted for are 15x7 rally wheels, and this one disc brakes up front. And onto the tail of the car is the A34 Super Track Pack, which means 410 Dana back there. So that means this car is built for acceleration. Let's peek under the hood and see how correct this one has been restored. And this is a full restoration, just a great looking car in every way. Let's pop that hood. Here's the shaker, the mean shaker. You pull up next to a GTO with this thing wiggling away. The GTO is going to find another direction to go because this is pretty much unbeatable. 425 horsepower, 490 foot-pounds of torque. And let's behold the mighty elephant. And there it is, the street Hemi. 1971 and 70 brought hydraulic lifters, so no trouble with solid lifters and needing to set the lash, but 71 and 70 had hydraulic lifters, same 425 horsepower, but again, correctly restored here. The shaker present and accounted for, 26-inch wide radiator, and perfect restoration in every way, shape, or form. Something unique about street Hemis is that they have a wiring harness on the passenger side of the dash, which can be uncoupled for quick installation on the assembly line, and also a detail that many people forget, but it's present and accounted for here. Also on the fender tag, it says Hemi fender, which means it has the proper fenders for a Hemi car, which had larger tires up front, and they had rolled fender lips on these so that the fenders would not rub the tires on a tight corner. Correctly done inside and out. And again, this is again a 4-speed car with a Hemi 4-speed 18-tooth strong transmission, pistol grip shifter for the first time in 1970, seen here in 1971. And something cool about this car is the fact that it was featured on the cover of Hot Rod magazine right here back in June of 2018. And more important than any of that is it has the full Dave Wise report. Dave Wise, of course, is the man, the guru, to validate any car, any Hemi car, any Mopar for that matter. But he went over this car with a fine-tooth comb and found it to be a very great example of the breed. Opening the door, bucket seats, of course. No console, there was extra cost. And again, it's kind of built for acceleration. No dead weight on this one. The pistol grip 4-speed, the 410 Dana in the back. And just the curious yellow paint on this one here. A very unusual color choice for a guy with a street Hemi, but here it is. Selling on October 24th or 25th. Bid strong. It's a good one. Hey, I'm Steve Magnante here in Bogart, Georgia at the Tony Townley Collection, where on October 24th and 25th, 2025, over 100 special interest vehicles will be sold by Richmond Auctions, many of them at no reserve. With that said, one of the coolest cars I'm looking forward to is this 1964 Pontiac GTO Convertible. Now, if you know your muscle cars, you know that the Pontiac GTO arrived in 1964. There's a first-year example. Perhaps, well, it is the first mid-sized car with a big engine, and it really set the blueprint for following muscle cars of all types. But Pontiac started with the great one, the GTO. And in 1964, 32,450 GTOs were built, which is about 4 times as many as Pontiac hoped they'd sell, but it was a smash right off the bat. With that said, of those 32,450 cars, only 6,644 were convertibles like this one. This one's a factory midnight black, or starlight black car, I should say. Starlight black from day one. Beautifully restored car from the Milton Robson collection, and just perfectly restored. Let's pop the hood and take a look at the 389 under the hood. And of course, the 389 was the standard engine in the GTO, but it came two ways, single 4-barrel or with 3 2s, tri-power. Let's take a peek at that. And there it is, the mighty triple Rochester carbureted 389 with 348 horsepower. And even more impressively, this one has factory AC. That's the AC unit right there. 4-speed car, power brakes, power steering. It's fully loaded. Has tilt column, sport steering wheel with wood trim. And great example, beautifully restored. Again, Milton Robson didn't mess around. His vehicles were always restored to 101 points, if you will. And inside the car, we get to the bucket seat interior, of course, standard fare on the GTO. And this is a true GTO car with the, it's a special code, and these 382 code on the cowl tag, which tells it it's a real GTO, because the VIN doesn't tell you it's a GTO until you get in 1966. So with that said, it's a true GTO convertible. And again, only 6,644 of these were built. It's a 4-speed and has everything you want inside, tilt column. And even around the back here, we have the exhaust splitters, which are an extra cost item right here at the back of the car. So a great example of the breed. And again, factory AC, original Starlight Black, has a protecto plate and a whole bunch of documentation verifying this car. Was looked over by PHS, Pontiac Historical Services, and it's verified as a true GTO convertible. And with that said, it has the best wheels you could have on a GTO. These are the Hurst wheels, not a factory piece, but these are common aftermarket item. The tires themselves are Uniroyal Tiger Paw tires, red lines. So really great looking car. Red lines, black car, white top. Great for great eye candy, and also a great car for driving and enjoying. So bid strong. It's one of the best on the planet. Hey, I'm Steve Magnante here in Bogart, Georgia at the Tony Townley Collection, where on October 24th and 25th, a little over 100 special interest cars will be auctioned by Richmond Auctions in a two-day feast of buying and selling. And something special that's going to be covered is this vehicle here. It's a 1977 Pontiac Trans Am Special Edition. Special Edition, of course, was done by Pontiac to mark Pontiac's 75th anniversary. The Special Edition graphics, Starlight Black and Gold, were done to mark Pontiac's 50th anniversary in producing cars, and they did it with a big bang. Of course, the Smokey and the Bandit movie came out the same year, making Burt Reynolds and Sally Field's household names. Not that they weren't already, but again, beautiful car. Everybody knows what a Trans Am, especially a Special Edition, as we see here. It's a low-mile, 46,291 car with one respray. Otherwise, it's all original, unmodified. So let's pop the hood and have a look what's underneath the shaker hood. That's one of the things about the Trans Am from 1970 right through 1979. The Trans Am had the shaker. Actually, 81 was the final year for the shaker on Trans Ams. But with that said, the shaker was a big part of the Trans Am's motif and look. So let's pop the hood and see what we find. And there it is, the shaker. Now, the chrome valve covers on this mark this one as a W72, which means it has the 220 horsepower, the better of the two 400s, and way better than the old 403, which is the base engine in Trans Am. So the chrome covers on this market is a very special edition. And total on these, there were 2,699 of these cars built with a 400 4-speed with T-tops in 1977. This is one of them. And great restoration. Everything about this is crisp under the hood. And again, it's basically an unrestored car with very minimal miles. Under the hood has not been resprayed. Just the outer panels have been resprayed one time with Starlight Black. Great looking car. Of course, first year for the Banshee-esque quad headlights on all Firebirds for 1977, a new look versus the round lights of 1976. So a great example of the breed right here, right down to this quad tips out the exhaust, coming out the tail of the car. And of course, inside this one has the 4-speed transmission, which is very uncommon. Most of these cars were automatics back in the day. And we'll go inside, and here are the T-tops correctly rendered. These are the Hurst T-tops. The Fisher body T-tops came a little bit, they were longer, but this is the original correct Hurst T-tops, modified for GM by Hurst. Yes, those guys who made Hemi darts in the 60s, and of course the shifters, Hurst and Industries. So correct stuff here. And inside the 4-speed manual transmission, it's a wide ratio 4-speed, the Muncie M20 transmission of legend, really. And again, the honeycomb wheels here used on these special edition cars, and again, the gold and the Starlight Black on these cars, just really eye-catching stuff. And if you drive one of these things, everybody notices. They want to know your name. And this is a great example of the breed right here. So bid strong. You'll be a legend in your hometown.